Remind reminders Reminders during the online session. Number 1. Have a stable connection. This will enable participants to be present during the duration of the session. Number 2. Be on time. We encourage the participants to be online at least 10 minutes before the start of the session. Number 3. Microphone of the participant shall be placed on mute to avoid interruptions during the presentation, while turning on camera off is encouraged. Number 4. Do not close or leave the Zoom meeting during the session to avoid being logged out. That will result to incomplete attendance. Number 5. If you are using a laptop, kindly select the speaker gallery for the better viewing. Number 6. All questions will be entertained after the presentation. You may type your questions on the chat box so that the moderator can take note of it. Number 7. Certificate of attendance will be given only after the participant has accomplished the evaluation of the program. This will be sent to the participant's registered email. The link to accomplish the evaluation will be provided at the end of the session.
Basic netiquettes during the online session. Number 1. Let us all act professionally during this webinar. Please use proper and appropriate languages when you want to say something. Number 2. Kindly minimize the use of capital letters when typing on the chat box to avoid misinterpretations. Number 3. Please be polite when asking questions. Number 4. Please ask questions that are only relevant with the topics. Number 5. Be mindful and considerate about the things that you will be typing on the chat box. Number 6. Please respect everyone in this event, especially the speakers and guests.
Reminders during the online session. Number 1. Have a stable connection. This will enable participants to be present during the duration of the session. Number 2. Be on time. We encourage the participants to be online at least 10 minutes before the start of the session. Number 3. Microphone of the participant shall be placed on mute to avoid interruptions during the presentation, while turning on camera off is encouraged. Number 4. Do not close or leave the Zoom meeting during the session to avoid being logged out. That will result to incomplete attendance. Number 5. If you are using a laptop, kindly select the speaker gallery for the better viewing. Number 6. All questions will be entertained after the presentation. You may type your questions on the chat box so that the moderator can take note of it. Number 7. Certificate of attendance will be given only after the participant has accomplished the evaluation of the program. This will be sent to the participant's registered email. The link to accomplish the evaluation will be provided at the end of the session.
Basic netiquettes during the online session. Number 1. Let us all act professionally during this webinar. Please use proper and appropriate languages when you want to say something. Number 2. Kindly minimize the use of capital letters when typing on the chat box to avoid misinterpretations. Number 3. Please be polite when asking questions. Number 4.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So let's just wait for other participants to join in. And while waiting, just sit back and we will start the event proper at exactly 1:30 p.m. type in the chat box what schools or sections were you from, and we are so blessed and happy po na nakasama po namin kayo ngayong hapong ito. And thank you also for taking time for attending po our webinar. It means a lot po para sa aming lahat dito from the PLMAR students, 4th year batch Zorgex Espero. Thank you so very much.
Okay, while waiting, kindly type in the chat box what schools or sections were you from so that we can acknowledge you. Okay, as of the moment, we do have students from various colleges and universities, such as the Our Lady of Fatima University, University of the East Memorial Medical Center, Davao Medical Schools Foundation, Davao Doctoral College, Emilio Aguinaldo College, Manila, West Visayas State University, Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila, Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Point Loma Nazarene University, Universal College of Parañaque, West Visayas State University, University of Santo Tomas, Adamson University, Cebu Normal University, UERN, and of course, our very own students from Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Marikina. Good afternoon, everyone. We also have guests from the different associations in the nursing field, such as the Philippine Nurses Association, Philippine Nurses Association of America, New Zealand Nursing Organization, Dr. Rafael S. Tumbocon Memorial Hospital. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Ma'am Zenaida C. Dagno from Board of Nursing, as well as the Board of Nursing Chairman, Ma'am LCT, as well as Ma'am Merly Salvani and Ma'am Zeni Concepcion. Good afternoon, mga ma'am. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of some of the PNA members, such as Ma'am Maria Catrino Orbista, Sir Clint Saburnal, Sir Leonardo Matunding, Ma'am Elizabeth Resurrection, Ma'am Janet Rose Toledo, and Ma'am Fe Frolin Kalungsod. Good afternoon, mga ma'am, sir. I also would like to acknowledge the presence of some deans and clinical instructors from different universities, such as Sir Michael Angelo Campo Amor from Davao Doctors College, and Sir Mildred Glinoga from UERN, as well as Sir Jeffrey Evangelista from Our Lady of Fatima University in Pampanga. I also would like to acknowledge the presence of a very important person, a USRN, Ma'am Aimee Joy Alegro. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you for coming to our webinar. And of course, I would like to acknowledge the presence of some of the faculty members of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Marikina Department of Nursing, Dr. Alexander Estanislao, Dr. Emerita Avendaño, Dr. John Eric Rosales, Ma'am Marisa Tolentino, Ma'am Vicky Bedonia, Ma'am Marisa, Ma'am Paz Kalingasan, Ma'am Marites Pasion, Ma'am Evelyn Kailaw, Ma'am Levy Ubalde, Ma'am Marian Lapitan, Ma'am Mary Jean Matinda, Ma'am Vilma Cordova, Ma'am Juliet Tanon, Ma'am Filipina Peña Verde, as well as Sir Eraldo Nepomuceno, our advisor for Nursing Leadership and Management, the former Dean of the College of Health Sciences, Ma'am Madeline Aquino, and as well as the third Dean, Miss Jacqueline Kalayka. Good afternoon, ma'am, sir. We're going to start the program in 10 seconds.
Thank you so much, everyone, for patiently waiting. So let us now start this webinar with an opening prayer, followed by the Philippine National Anthem. And right at this very moment, let us put ourselves in the presence of God.
Lord of wisdom, source of intelligence, we welcome you to this auspicious gathering, an august moment for the pursuit of knowledge that is offered for the glory of your name. We do not wish to ask you more than just you joining us today, but we look forward to your heavenly grace, to amplify the desire for truth, to look up for and become prudent to learning. Keep us grounded in your love and mercy, as we traverse a challenging path to keeping the inclination of understanding you and your most awe-inspiring creation. Be with us, O Lord, and descend your Spirit on us, to maintain an earnest desire for knowledge, truth, and understanding you, the guide of the wise, the stronghold of the learned. This we ask through Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa dagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mo pagaw, ay hinatang tulakaw sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di maghihindig. Lupa ng araw niyang walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang ibigaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
So once again, hi everyone. Welcome po to our webinar and hello to my partner.
Hi, Eliza. You look
Hi,
gorgeous
Ace.
today. How are you?
I'm so good, ikaw din. And I believe lahat tayo dito ngayon, meron akong mga nakikita ng mga kasama natin, di ba, na ang gaganda din ng itsura nila.
Oo,
Tama?
tama ka dyan. Parang ayaw din nila magpakamug sa atin. Eliza, I have a
Totoo
question for you
yan.
before we start. Since we are in a
Okay,
lockdown
sure.
for a year na, di ba? So, we are in a lockdown for a
Yes.
year. So, what is one big realization na na-realize mo during this lockdown? Na sa tingin mo, it's such a turning point sa'yo na may dapat kang baguhin sa sarili mo.
Alam mo, ako Ace, to be very honest, no, for 1 year na nasa lockdown tayo, one thing really I realized is that yung mga bagay na, di ba, during nung hindi pa nagkaka-pandemic, yung mga bagay na pinaglalaanan natin ng panahon, yung mga bagay na in-earn natin, yung mga bagay na gusto natin palagi makakuha ng mga bagay na yun, pera, yung mga possessions, yung mga materials na bagay, none of those matters pala. Kasi na-realize ko this pandemic, what really matters is really yung nasa maliliit na bagay, like our time, our families, na hindi natin talaga dati na na-cherish, hindi talaga natin, di ba? Alam mo yan, hindi talaga natin a-appreciate before. Pero ngayon, after 1 year ng lockdown, na-realize ko na things are better, di ba? Kapag ka mas simple yung mga gusto natin sa buhay, and yun talaga yung mga totoong bagay that will really bring us na yung genuine joy and happiness.
Yan. Well, ako naman, ang na-realize ko is yung relationship natin with other people, especially dun sa mga classmates natin. It's been a year na hindi tayo
Yes.
nagkakasama-sama. So I do really miss our classmates talaga. I mean, yung, alam mo yung mga panahon na naglolokohan tayo, yung mga panahon na
Yes.
magkakasama tayo, lalo na yung nag-iiyakan tayo when it comes to doing, natin, yung mga case studies,
Tama.
di ba?
Tama.
Alam mo yung
Tama.
ma-realize mo
Tama.
na, ang saya pala ng feeling na gano'n na sama-sama kayo doing such things na kailangan nyo as a requirement for school. Yun yung mga
Yes.
namimiss ko by this time kasi it's a year then hopefully malapit na yung graduation, hindi man lang tayo magkakasama-sama, di ba? So, I just wanted to cherish those moments talaga. And I do
Yes.
realize na sana pala nung mga time na may klase pa is nagawa ko yung best ko kasama
Totoo.
yung mga friends and classmates natin. Di ba?
Yes, kumbaga sana pala na ano na natin, talagang cherish na natin yung panahon, ano?
Mm-mm.
Pero 'di ba yung
Oo.
kaba, 'di ba yung
Mm-mm.
kapag ka magre-rate them ka,
Yeah.
magre-reset ka whatever, 'di ba? Pero yun talaga yung maganda talaga na natutunan natin for this lockdown. But before anything else, Ace, 'di ba? Right now, 'di ba, bago tayo mag-proceed, let's just introduce ourselves first, 'di ba? To our dear guests and viewers. So, good afternoon po once again. Hi, my name is Eliza Santiago, and I am your host for today's webinar.
Yan. And hi everyone, good afternoon po. I'm Ace Sabiolo, your moderator for today's webinar. And welcome to our webinar entitled Strategies for Successful Care, Nursing Documentation, and Healthy Working Environment.
Yes, so simulan na natin to, Ace. To formally
Okay.
open our webinar, may we call on the overall chairman, Miss Christine Curay, to give us her opening remarks.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So our Dean Jacqueline M. Kalekay, distinguished keynote speakers, Dean Melvin D. Miranda, and Ma'am Danilyn Angco A. Isidor, to our leadership and management advisor, Sir Heraldo V. Nepomuceno, to our beloved professors, my fellow nursing students, future colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As the overall chairman of the fourth year student nurses of batch 2021, Zorg et Spero, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our second webinar. So my committees, namely program, registration and e-marketing, finance, technical and visual, resource speaker coordination and logistics. Thank you all for your efforts and congratulations for the successful happening of this event. As we approach the path of becoming professional nurses, it is essential for us to cognize and nurture the culture from fundamental beliefs, principles, theories, and skills that will be part of our lifetime journey. Today, we will be able to acquire additional comprehensive approach and strategies in the success of care as we favored of having two of the best speakers we have in the industry of Philippine nursing. On behalf of our batch and the whole committee, thank you everyone for taking your time joining us this afternoon. I am Christine Curay, the overall chairman of this webinar, Strategies of Success of Care, Nursing Documentation, and Healthy Working Environment.
Yay, thank you, Ms. Kuray, for that uplifting opening remark. Such a remarkable remark from our president, one of the mom sheets nga ng aming batch. Isa sa mga
Yes.
tinitingala namin talaga when it comes to yung pagbibigay ng payo talaga sa ating mga, alam mo naman, nakakabata mga classmates niya. Even though minsan
Right.
talaga napapayak natin si Ate Kuray. Sorry for that, Ate Kuray. Okay, so I would also like to acknowledge again, informal, the presence of our Dean Jacqueline Kalekay, our advisor, Professor Heraldo Nepomuceno, our faculty members, so our dear participants comprised of the students of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Marikina and students from various colleges and universities. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we are presenting two topics entitled Nursing Documentation and Healthy Working Environment. And I think that everyone is so excited for this. So let's start this. right away. Kaya wala nang pagtumpik-tumpik na.
Yes. And if you guys have any questions during the presentation, please po do them. Type them in the chat box and we'll bring them up later during the Q&A portion. Ayan. So thank you once again, guys, for joining us. So let us now proceed. All right. Let us now proceed to one of the most important part of our event. Right now, it is an honor to introduce to you our first speaker for our first topic. She is currently the Resource Director from Davao Medical School Foundation Incorporated Hospital from 2016. She is also a Davao Chapter Treasurer on People Management Association of the Philippines from 2020 and currently an auditor. A protection data officer in Davao Medical School Foundation Incorporated Hospital from 2018 up to present, an ethics research committee member of Davao Medical School Foundation Incorporated Hospital, accredited level 2 by PHREB from 2015 up to present. She also has a vast experience as the quality management representative of Davao Medical School Foundation Incorporated Hospital from 2015 to 2016. A clinical nurse supervisor of Davao Medical School Foundation Incorporated Hospital from 2014. A guest lecturer and reviewer for Competency Appraisal 1 and 2 from 2013 to 2014. She is a branch manager of Royal Pentagon Review Center from 2012. A board of director of PNA Davao City Chapter from 2011. An assistant dean, College of Nursing from Davao Doctors College from 2008 to 2011. A RLE supervisor of Davao Doctors College from 2005 to 2007. A clinical instructor of Davao Doctors College from 2003 to 2004. She is a school nurse of Holy Cross College of Kalinan from 2000 until 2002. A medical surgical head nurse of Isaac T. Rebello Memorial Hospital from 1993 to 1994. And an emergency room nurse from Isaac T. Rebello Memorial Hospital from 1991 to 1992. And I can't wait to get started on our first topic. Kanina pa po siya nandito kasama natin. So now, without further ado, may we call on Miss Daneline Angco A. Isidor, RN, MN, CHA, AF, PM. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon po, ma'am.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes
Clearly.
po.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm very thankful for this opportunity. It's quite a generous introduction, Eliza and Ace. So before anything else, I would like to introduce my company, Davao Medical School Foundation Hospital Incorporated. We are the healthcare services of Davao Medical School Foundation Incorporated. We are a consortium of Ateneo de Davao University, Broken Shire Integrated Health Ministries Incorporated, Development of People's Foundation, San Pedro Hospital, and San Pedro College. As of now, we are a level 2 accredited by DOH with 154 bed capacity. We have 400 plus regular employees. We have 170 active consultants, physicians, and we have 365 plus visiting consultants. We are licensed by the DOH and accredited by PHIC. In the participants, I see familiar names, and I'm very much thankful that one of my teacher in San Pedro College is here participating in this webinar. I would like to make mention to Dr. LCT, my mentor. And I would like also to thank in advance the PLM, especially the BSN for students, College of Nursing, the Surge F Sparrow Group, for allowing me to share my knowledge and experience as a nurse. So, next slide, please. My topic for today is all about nursing documentation, but the whole topic is strategies for successful care, nursing documentation, and healthy working environment. Next slide, please. The objective for this is the primary aim is to understand the factors in nursing documentation in terms of structure and student standard approach. I know that you're in your level of first year, second year, third year, and fourth year. You have a tremendous or vast theories about what is nursing documentation. And the outline of my presentation will be the following. Number one is the definition of documentation, a general focus on nursing, nursing documentation and purposes of documentation, guidelines for good documentation and reporting, types of record keeping used in healthcare nowadays, and common deficiencies in record keeping, and legal issues in record keeping. Next slide, please. So now we will define what is documentation. Documentation, this is a communicable material. When we say communicable material, it means that it has to impart facts, information, messages, ideas, feelings, observations by describing, explaining, and uh, some characteristics of a certain object. It is its part, its whole, the process itself, the procedure or the system. It can be written by hand with the use of your two hands and through your computer print or electronically. This is very important in every organization. Why? Because this is where the employees are going to follow the documentation. Being a nurse, it is also very vital for us because we do things to our patient, especially to our nursing care plan, the medications that we give, the vital signs that we take, the monitoring of patients, input and output and the likes, and it should be recorded in real time. And don't forget that after you have taken all of them, every time you make an entry to your progress, your nurse's progress notes, your medication sheets, you should have to affix your signature and your full name and the date and time. It should be the real time. Next slide, please. Now, another definition, it is a primary source of evidence used to continually measure performance outcomes. First-hand information is used to measure any standard acceptable intervention and its outcome given by a healthcare worker to a client or to a customer. This documentation is a way that the health team members can communicate with each other, and this is very important for us. Next slide, please. Now, who are the authorized person who can have this communicable material or the documentation itself? It is the immediate family, no? But there are patients upon admission that they requested that they will have not to share their personal health record to their family. So with that, we do respect that one because that is their request. And if permitted by the patient, the immediate family, the doctors in charge, the attending physician, the other healthcare care team members, of course, were included, nurses. And I really emphasize this to nurses. Why? It is because we are there at the bedside of our patients 24/7 to alleviate the pain, to encourage them and let our patient be eased from any experience or that they discomfort that they experience, and to let them feel that they are cared for. We use our hands to let them feel that for them to be reminded during that they have uh, sorry that they're still with us during their confinement, that they are there to support them and their needs. Ideally, after discharge, our responsibility is for them to be reminded that they have to take all the discharge instructions like medications, exercise regularly, follow the diet regimen order, check up with attending physician we needed, and follow other health protocols. So next slide, please. So what is nursing documentation? Every time we write down in the patient's chart about our nursing assessment, diagnosis, plan of care, intervention, application of the intervention, and evaluation of the outcome of the whole nursing care plan of the patient, we have to write it down legibly. Then I can still remember during my college days that my clinical instructor, first day of duty, will have to check our penmanship, and that she will not countersign our nurse's progress notes if she cannot read our penmanship. Some of my classmates, they have to write their nurses notes in a shorthand method. Why? Because kasi pag di niya mabasa talaga, pinapaulit-ulit ka at hindi talaga mag-sign ang instructor mo. And then mahuhuli ka ng uwi because you have to exercise your hand, no? By scribbling legibly in your pocket notebook so that you will have a very good documentation, and the incoming shift will really understand what you have written, what you have endorsed to the incoming shift because you are the outgoing shift. Now, next slide, please. This is very important. If it is not written down, it was not done. So if it is what was not done, do not write it down. So documentation and reporting in nursing are needed for our continuity of care. Our nursing documentation is a way of communicating with other health team members for the continuity of care. We only have 8 hours a day per shift to take good care of our patients. But now, because of this pandemic, nurses has to come up to 12 hours, 16 hours. That is why your proper documentation, our proper documentation is needed for the incoming shift to know that what will be their next intervention, management, or care to be performed to the patient. Proper endorsement is also very important and necessary, and it should be complete. Cardex, your Cardex. I know all of us are using Cardex. I don't know, some are using computer system, but for the old ones, we use Cardex. This is our Bible. That is why we have to update every now and then. Sabihin nyo lang ako, hi, si Ma'am Danilyn talaga, nurse ito na Cardam. In Bisaya, it's Karaang Damang. But for me, I do believe in Cardex because I want to be practical. That I don't want that someday I will land in the court for not doing the right thing, like proper documentation in my patient's chart. Time your documentation. You didn't have the luxury of time to document. That is why my advice is for you to have to write down first in your endorsement sheet what you have done for the patient before finally transfer it to your patient's chart. When I was still a nursing supervisor, before I observed that the very common error is miss to sign the medications. And I'm very glad nowadays that we have partners in the hospital. We have the clinical pharmacist who reminds us and check our medication before giving it to our patient. And they remind us that we missed the signature. But sometimes we we find them policing us, but it's not. Now they are part of the healthcare team. And also they also remind doctors no, that they have not to give the medication together with another medication because it can either be has effect on the potency and effect on the it can have an adverse reaction to the patient. So as a nurse, we should be very vigilant and clear and very accurate in doing our documentation. It should be in real time. Next slide, please. Yes, as I have said a while ago, it is a way of communicating with other health team members for them to be guided on what will be the next management on intervention to the patient It should be completely recorded at all times. And because once you miss an entry, then other health workers, especially doctors, this will be serve as their basis for giving orders for medication, diagnostic procedures, laboratory exams, therapy, diet, and others. Documentation is very important during accreditation also by regulatory bodies, especially in the hospital setting. We are the most regulated entity. Name it, we all abide in it. We have the DOLE, DOH, Bureau of Fire, PHIC, DENR, DPWH, EMB, BIR. So we really have one, and local government governing bodies. Compliance-wise, hospital is number one. Why? Because you will not be granted with a license to operate if you cannot comply with all of the documentation required by you. So in accreditation, documentation is very important. What is not written, not done. Next slide, please. So what are the purposes? As I've said a while ago, it is a way of communication. There should always be a speaker and a listener. Your documentation is a way of communicating to other health team members involved in the care of the patient. It should be complete, accurate, concise, legible, good penmanship, documentation, and should be done by a nurse. Not should be, it should be the nurse who is going to write it down. Teamwork is very necessary in the delivery of quality care and services to the patient and to his family. It is a collaborative effort between the healthcare team members. And please, if you don't have a very good documentation, the next to you will cannot comprehend and cannot easily understand what you are endorsing for. It should be in a manner that is simple and clear. What is important that the health team member will have to provide the necessary management and quality of care that the patient deserves to have because you have a very good documentation. Next slide, please. Communication is an exchange of information. Yes, in communication, nurses will have to consider also our limits. No? What do I mean by this? We have to say no to our health team members who always delegate their task on us. Marami na tayong work. Some of them always delegate their task on us. Hello, sabihan natin dalawa lang po ang kamay ng nurses. You have to be assertive in a respectful manner. Yun lang. You have to be assertive. Saying no to someone is not showing disrespect. It is just that you are just on your right track and that you know where you stand and you know your limits and boundaries. Don't be the know-all nurse because a nurse should always be assertive and knows her patient very well. Next slide, please. Planning for your client care. In here, you have to review thoroughly your documented assessment, the treatment of your patient, and other information that is being written in the chart for the continuity of care plan to be given to the patient and other succeeding intervention. It should be completely written and recorded in the patient's charts. When we say comprehensive, it is complete in all aspects. All areas should be covered, like your physiological, psychological, emotional aspect of the patient. Especially now in times of crisis like this that we have experienced now, we nurses should be keen enough in the assessment of our patient because also us are affected with this phenomenon. But we are different to our client. Why? Because we know how to handle things well using our defense mechanisms. May I ask a question? Can you still recall your defense mechanisms? Now, who can give me one? I will share a story to you regarding this. During my psychiatry class, my teacher suddenly threw an eraser to my classmate. We are all shocked at that time. Why this teacher of ours is doing such to us? After all the shocking moments, our teaching told the class that that is our lesson for today. That is defense mechanism. She said to us that what I did to your classmate and to you, I am very thankful that you have reacted normally. So nagtawanan ng buong klase. So that is very important for us that we really have to have a plan of care, and because of documentation, there is a continuity of care. Next slide, please. This is what I'm saying a while ago. We have to know our limits. Since doctors also identifies problems, patients' problems, and we also make our own diagnosis, nursing diagnosis. We nurses also identifies patients' problem and make our own diagnosis for us to formulate a very good care plan to our patient. We don't want to compete with them, with other health team members. Our goal, the goal of the team, is to help our patient be back into its optimum level, and that our patient can go now achieving this goal towards the wellness of our patient under our care, be back to its normal living, and can perform independently his activities of daily living. Next slide, please. Assessment. Here, your good clinical eye is very important. For us to have a very good assessment by using our techniques that the school have given to us or imparted to us, your cephalocaudal assessment should be performed to come up and identify clinical problems, nursing diagnosis. Not only the patient that can benefit to our documentation, also our facility, the hospital, the school, the company can facilitate, can be, and also the family, and can benefit, and other support system, because this will guide them and inform them about the status of the patient. We'll be talking about your documentation as a nurse. Next slide, please. Now, in the previous slide, I mentioned about holistic approach in assessment of the patient. As a nurse, we have to consider really the whole aspect of our client, physiologically, mentally, psychologically, and our assessment will serve as a clinical baseline data and a clinical parameters of our patient. With this, the medical team, doctors and the like, will be guided on what will be their next step in the management of the patient. Next slide, please. Now, how documentation is very important, as what I have said earlier, during accreditation and auditing. In accreditation, documentation is very important. The accrediting body will have to inspect the necessary documents. During DOH accreditation, randomly they're going to pick, the inspector are going to pick the patient's chart, at least three patients chart in the area. They will physically inspect and interview the patient if what is written in the patient's chart is given or done to him. But that was before, during the pandemic. But now, the auditing or the accreditation or the inspection is done only virtually, because we have to follow health protocols. So what are the examples of the accreditation or the auditing health agencies? Now we have the DOH, the PhilHealth, and some of the accrediting bodies. Now, research. It is also, your documentation is a very good source of research material. Hospitals have a vast materials for research, even schools. Nurses documentation on their patient will provide the future researchers about the necessary information needed in the research that they were going to have. In research, strict compliance to Data Privacy Act of 2012 must be followed. If the patient's record be used, it has to follow a process and the patient will have to be informed about the research. The researcher will have to ask for approval before doing the research using the patient's chart. Next slide, please. How about education? Next slide. Aside from research, patients' files are a very good source of educational materials. You have to choose the right patient that will be presented in your case study that you're going to learn to present it as a requirement. You are required to submit your case study in every rotation. And this is a very good source of educational materials. And even during your stay in the clinical area, when you browse the patient's chart, every day is a learning. When you browse the medication sheet, you can see new medication and you browse your PMs, you browse your drug book and else and what reference, and then you can see, you can learn. So every day, this is a very good educational materials, your documentation. And it also help you to become a very good documenter as a nurse. Next slide, please. Now, documentation. Your documentation, especially now that we are in the era of electronics, digital, everyone is prepared to be globally competitive. The government required every institution, it can be educational, hospital, to have their own information system. Us here in the hospital, we are required to have our own hospital information system installed. Because this is due to required by the OH, it is required by PhilHealth for disbursement of pay, reimbursement of pay, and it is already in the digital platform. All transactions now is in electronic and in virtual form. So including is this one, the webinar. Next slide, please. Now this one, your National Nursing Core Competency Standard. With this, your NNCS, you are prepared to face the world of professional to become proficient, effective, efficient nurses. Completion of this NNCCS will help you in your journey towards the professional world as a nurse. This is spread all throughout your curricula, your NNCCS. So, in your NNCS, you have to comply with at least as a beginning nurse's role on client care 21. Next slide, please. Beginning nurse's role on management and leadership 30. Beginning nurse's role on research 12. And also, I would like to encourage everyone to pursue to postgrad studies, attend seminars, conventions, actively participating in our organization like the Philippine Nurses Association and other specialty organization. Next slide. So our documentation is very helpful also in reimbursement. Our complete documentation is very important in the reimbursement of payment, especially the hospital. Because if our charts are incomplete, there will be return to hospital charts and marami. So that is why we are very strict in the completion of our patients' chart and record. We have to really to check the medication sheet, the order sheet of the doctor, the progress nurse's notes, that it has to be complete. from front to back of the patient's chart, because this is very important in the reimbursement of payment for the insurances, especially PhilHealth Insurance Company. Now, very corporation, very important. Once it is incomplete, these agencies will not pay the hospital. And remember, the hospital is a business. We have to pay employees, we have to pay doctors, we have to pay suppliers. So it is very important reimbursement. And our role is we have to complete and write legibly, accurately, and sign completely all the documents that we have gotten from our patients. So no, next is legal documentation. No, legal documentation, complete documents will help the nurse be away from any legal predicament. Also, we are the record keepers of our patient's record. We should keep it with privacy and confidentiality. Remember, what is in the patient's record is a personal, sensitive information. What we write, what we describe, what we explain, and what we observe that we got this information from the patient should always be kept confidential. Later on in my next slide, I'm going to explain what is a physical security, what is a technical security. So as a nurse, it is very vital for us to follow really the Privacy Data Act of 2012. Next slide. Healthcare analysis. In healthcare analysis, in an agency, the documentation that we have is very necessary in the analysis of the patient status of the patient, the medical procedure to be done to the patient. On the business side of it, this very important uh, in the analysis as to the census, admitted patients, outpatient patient in the facility, or the quality of services, equipments used, and in most in-demand equipments and training of staff and employees. These are being analyzed by the management in order for the management to increase its profitability, and the customer will be able to experience the what we call the wow experience. When we say wow experience, it means that our patients are very satisfied with the services that we provide, and also satisfied with the amenities of the hospital. Now, what is basic rule in nursing documentation? Of course, it should be clear. No erasures, write it legibly. It can be written longhand, it can be written shorthand, computer print, electronically, and the document should be concise. And write only what you have assessed. And you have also what are your, write also your dependent and independent nursing interventions done to the patient. And it should be in a collaborative management given to the patient and collaborative management. It should be in a real time. Yan talaga isabi ko, i-emphasize ko. Real time. Aggressive. If the monitoring is ordered is every 15 minutes, you as a nurse that you have to write down progressive reports every 15 minutes. If the patient is in a critical condition in ICU, the ratio in the ward, if the level of the patient is in 15. Now, after this, you have to reassess the intervention given and evaluate. And If there is improvement in the status of the patient, you have to report immediately to the attending physician for update. Next slide, please. Now, what are the characteristics or the guidelines for good documentation and reporting? Number one, fact. With the use of your right tool and technique in assessment, a nurse will be able to document the necessary information needed for the medical intervention. The nurse will have to use the technique of, can you still remember what are those techniques that we use in cephalocaudal assessment? We have four, right? We have inspection, palpation, auscultation, and your percussion. So that is what we use. So fact is very important. It should be fact. Number two is chart the symptom and treatment, avoid opinions and hearsay. Write everything in the nurse's notes, your assessment, your diagnosis, your plan of activity or plan of care, intervention, management, and your evaluation of care. After that, you have to affix your signature at the end of your entry with your full name, the date and time. Remember, if it is not written, not done. So, you have, do not write down if you have not done it. If it is not done, or if it is not written, it is not done. Next slide, please. Accuracy. Completeness, avoid late entries. Write all information that you got from your patient in real time. If the monitoring order is every 15 minutes, you have to record your findings and observation every 15 minutes. The completeness of information is very vital in the management of the patient. Never allow late entries. It should be real time. The completeness of information is very vital in the management of the patient. And real time should always be followed. Next slide, please. Follow policy on abbreviations. You only write abbreviations in the chart that is acceptable internationally and according to standard. Never write abbreviations that are not acceptable. Example, you write HX for history, you write T for temperature. No, you have to write it in a full term. Never write abbreviations that are not acceptable. Why? Because sooner or later, this will place you in legal issue. As I said earlier, all should be written in a proper way of documenting it and how to document it. Next slide, please. Currentness. Healthcare team members will base the management on the current information. That is why I said it should be progressive. That is documented in the patient's chart. Even when recorded information is not current, then the management that will be given to the patient is not. Because what you have written in your documentation is not the right status of the patient that are. Our documented information is the baseline data and the parameters in the medical management. So you know how important our role is. So we really have to write down everything. Next slide, please. I know we are very good documenter. We are very good in writing reports, nurses. We are trained how to do it. We can even write it chronologically because we are trained to do progressive reports. We write in details, no shortcut. We use standard inks, blue and red, blue and black only in writing documents. We write in details. And it will be, if you have a very good handwriting, it will be a poogie points for us. Why? Because the incoming nurse or the incoming nurse chef will find it very easy to read what we document and what we endorse. Next slide, please. Confidentiality. This is very important kasi minsan dito tayo nadadali. Itong confidentiality na ito. As I discussed earlier, treat every information from your patient that you document as a confidential information, and therefore it is a personal, sensitive information. Follow what is being stated in the Data Privacy Act of 2012 and do not attempt to breach the confidentiality because you'll really land in court and later on, if proven guilty, in jail. The breach of confidentiality will just cost us lang naman 500,000 minimum fine, and the maximum fine is 4 million, and imprisonment of 3 years to 6 years once proven guilty. And we don't want that to happen to us because nurses, we are very careful in documenting our patient's chart. We're very good in that. We are trained how to do it very good. So we should follow a proper documentation. Now, next slide, please. When caring for a patient, it is important to ensure good record keeping to promote patient care and better communication. In my slide, pabalik-balik talaga communication, good record keeping, because I want to instill in your mind that as a nurse, we should document what we really have done to our patient. If not done, then don't document it. True, good record keeping will reflect the teamwork of healthcare workers and the quality of services to the patient. Never compete with other health care team member. You have role in the patient, in the care of the patient. Just role. Do your best. Care member and make recommendations towards the best care for your as a team. Next slide, please. Records is so important when it comes to continuity of care. If continuity of care for patient is to be assured, it is vital to keep good medical records, whether they are handwritten or electronic. Yes, it is true that if good documentation in our patient's care, then if it happens, the continuity of care towards the patient is already ensured. Next slide, please. Health professionals and others are able to use adequate medical records to reconstruct the essential parts of each patient contact without the need to refer to memory. You don't have a photographic memory. Do not rely on it even if you have. Ma'am, bata pa ako, matandaan ko lahat kung ano yung ginawa ko sa pasyente. Remember, your mind, sometimes it will float, no? The ideas. So you really have to write it down there, right there and then. You have two hands. What's the use of your two hands? No? You have to write and document about your patient status. If computer is available, then you have to write it computer print. If you have a very good documentation, it is very easy for the incoming shift to carry on the necessary interventions to be done to the patient, as well as to other healthcare team members be guided with your very good documentation. Next slide, please. In the healthcare system and the healthcare setting, we have three. No? The handwritten records, we have the computer-based systems, the electronic, or the combination of both. Uh, all of us are using both handwritten records and computer-based systems. I know you are very good in blended documentation. You can have both handwritten and computer-based. Next slide, please. Never give your password. This is what I'm saying a while ago. Technical security and physical security. Never give your password to your co-employee, because nurses, as you will be employed in a unit, you are given a password for the system, for the charging, for the records of the patient. Every staff is provided with a password and never share it. Why? Because they will have the breach. Somebody will hack your account. Never share it as much as possible. Change your an example of technical security. Changing your password every month. Pero minsan no, hindi tayo nag-change. Ako, I admit, hindi talaga ako nag-change ng passwords. Kasi sometimes makalimutan ko na kung sige ako change. Okay? Another is the physical security. Are you not wondering why the nurse station is not reachable by patient, by watcher? Because we are implementing or the physical security. Because we don't want an authorized individual can see our records and can even see our computers. So that is what we call physical security. We have to let the company or the patient's chart be protected and be out of reach. Because once there will be breach of confidentiality, with breach of technical security, breach of physical security, then legal issues will follow. So it is very important that we have to follow this, implement this technical security and physical security in our records, in the documentation. Now, what are the components of a patient's records include? We have the medical records, the nursing records, your progress notes, your medication charts, your laboratory orders and reports, vital signs observation charts, handover sheets and admissions. Sometimes itong handover sheets and admission, nadadala natin after endorsement, nasa bulsa pala. And then na-realize mo pagdating sa bahay, nasa bulsa mo, no? You have to put it, endorse it also, no? Hindi dalahin, ilagay sa bulsa. Discharge and transfer checklist letters, patient's assessment forms, such as nutrition or pressure area care assessment. Yung mga medication cards, sometimes nadadala, no? After giving medication, and then yun nasa bahay for endorse the patient sheet. What are the common differences? We have an absence of clarity, as an emphasized in my slides, previous slides, that your document should always be clear, simple. You write down, write it legibly with your can shorthand, talaga, correct spelling. missing information. Kaya nga progressive para walang missing information. And failure to record action taken when a problem has been identified. Here, poor record keeping hampers the care that patients receive and makes it difficult for healthcare professionals to defend their practice. Remember, our patients are here with us in the hospital for help and they are paying. So they should have deserved the services that they paid for us. Next slide, please. This is a survey from WHO. It has been shown that poor communication between healthcare professional is one factor for medical errors, and that is why this is due to our documentation. There are also evidence indicating that nursing documentation has relationship with patient mortality. Although keeping a patient record is part of their professional obligation, yes, it is. And many studies identified deficiencies in the practice of documentation among nurses across the globe. It's not only the Philippines, across the globe. Problema pala natin ito. This is taken from the research of nursing documentation practice and associated factors among nurses in public hospitals. Okay, next slide. It has been reported also in that research that nursing records are often incomplete. So, dapat kompleto, accurate, clear, legible. Lack accuracy, no? And had a poor quality. How to document everything that we did to our patient, we have to document it. The challenges for the documentation reported so far include, especially now, we have a problem on this. This number one, shortage of staff. We have lack of nurses. Number two, inadequate knowledge concerning the importance of documentation. So that is why I am emphasizing to you today, you have to write your documentation very well. Patient load. In the hospital, sometimes in the government hospital, the nurse will have to cater. Swerte ka na kung maka-cater ka ng 1:40. Some are catering 1:120. In the private hospitals naman, we have one now, especially that we are in crisis, we have lack of staff. Our nurses can cater up to 1:10, 1:12. That if the patient is level 2. What if the patient is in level 3 and level 4? They have only up to 1:3, but for level 4, 1:1. So ganyan, no? Because of shortage of staff. And lack of in-service training. So the role, no, of the nursing service, the role of the HR, patay ako doon, role ko yon. So you have to have a training, plan of training for nurses. For them to be updated, for them to know the trends of documentation or the current trends of nursing practice. And also this one, and lack of support from nursing leadership. So same research that I got. And what is the result of that research? Next slide, please. In their study, there were 317 participants with 99.7% response rate. The result of their study shows that practice nursing care documentation was inadequate, 47.8%. Inadequacy of documenting sheets, 95%. Inadequacy of time, AOR, 2.205, 95%. And with operational standard of nursing documentation, 2.050, 95%, were significantly associated with practice nursing care documentation. We really have to write down our nursing documentation, our nursing care very well. Next slide, please. To conclude, in this study, more than half of nurses were not documented their nursing care. Employing institutions should provide training on documentation of nursing care to enhance knowledge and create awareness on nurses' documentation to nursing directors and chief executive officer to access adequate documenting supplies besides employing more nurses. So training is very important for nurses. Next slide, please. So we come up now to the legal issues in record keeping. Nurses always ensure that what we document in the patient's chart are all complete because the chart per se is a legal document. I am very strict when it comes to chart review. Especially in our hospital, resident doctors will have to ask permission in writing when they are going to borrow a certain chart for a patient. They will have to read it inside the medical record section because you're taken away from the medical records. Hindi dapat ilabas, doon lang siya. Kung kailangan nila mag-review, then doon sila mag-review. Kasi pag mawala ang isa dyan, kahit isang sheet lang yan, then you will be under legal issue. So the in charge of the chart, which is the medical record section head, will see to it that what they borrowed should be counted page by page. Kasi pagbalik nila, ang medical record section head, i-count din niya page by page. Kasi pag binalik na incomplete, then liable sila. They will be under investigation for breach of confidentiality. Next slide, please. Documentation should be current. Di dapat panis. Di dapat panis na. You write exactly the patient status in a real time. Kaya nurses, we are trained to do the reporting regularly. Our goal is and serves as a parameters of our colleagues in the healthcare team. So, grabe ang role natin, no? We're very important in the team. So, kung mali ang gilagay natin sa ating documentation, then the exact or the proper management hindi na rin magawa sa patient. Next slide, please. A complete documentation will protect us from any harm, especially from any legal issue. Magsulat ng tama at dapat real time. Huwag isulat ang hindi dapat nagawa para sa pasyente. So, dapat real time, isulat ang tama na nagawa mo sa pasyente. How about yung mali na nagawa mo, ma'am? Of course, you will be under investigation. Next slide, please. What are the common nursing documentation errors? This one, no? The medication omission is a very big no-no for nurses. After endorsement time, you have given enough time to prepare the medication for the shift. And the outgoing shift already prepared your medication, the stock of medicine that you're going to give to your patient that shift. So, and then you're going to check it on the patient's chart. Bakit pa talaga may medication omission? Di ko maintindihan. So, as a medicating nurse, you have to check, no? Counter check. Pag alanganin, counter check. Pag alanganin, punta kay head nurse, magtanong. Pag alanganin, tawagan ang resident doctor kung ito ba talaga ang order. So, yun. Okay. Allergy omission. So, kasi nakakamatay din ng allergy, di ba? So, you really have to document it properly. Okay. If the patient will tell you, ma'am, nagra-rashes po ako nang nagbigay po kayo ng ganito, then you call immediately resident physician. right after you have your full assessment to your patient. Kasi ano naman ang i-report mo pag wala kang thorough assessment sa pasyente mo. Okay? Next slide please. Blank items on a chart. Never leave blank spaces in the chart. It will give an option that the treatment was not administered by the nurse, or the nurse forgot to document what she administered to the patient. If and when this happens, then there will be an open space for legal issue. There much stronger evidence is present in that scenario. It putting your license at stake, and the license to operate of the hospital is also in danger. Okay. Next slide, please. Ito, unclear orders. Mahiya tayo. No. Clarify to your doctor. Palambing style. Alam mo, nurses, magaling nito eh. Palambing style. Doktor, ano po ba itong order nyo? Parang di ko po kayang basahin ng mga mata ko. Just do it. Talk nicely to them. Nurses are very good in doing this to our doctors. As I said a while ago, we will accept that every day is a learning process to us nurses. We encounter new medicines, new diagnosis, new treatment, because medical science is an evolving science. And if we are not sure, if we are unclear, we really have to clarify with respect, because respect begets respect. So yun ang learn. Next slide, please. Improving your nursing skills. Accept criticisms. Sometimes kasi ma-pride tayo, kala natin perfect na tayo. No, we really have to accept criticisms. But criticisms who are constructive. No, ako din, hindi ako mag-accept kung hindi constructive. It should be constructive. Pag personal, oops, off limits na ito. Criticisms pertaining to your work is valid, will help you improve your skills, and take it as a challenge for you to improve, for your improvement. To become the best nurse someday, and you have to aim for the best. Next slide, please. Delegation and countersigning. Ito naman kasi minsan nag-delegate tayo, no? Especially to our nursing aides. If the healthcare team is multi-professional, it means vast of professional healthcare team members. In affixing your signature, make it sure that you have thoroughly checked the document for your signature. And because why you have to check it? Because once you affix your signature in it, it signifies that you're accountable. So you really have to check everything. Next slide, please. As with any delegated activity, registered nurses should, 1, provide supervision until the team member is competent at undertaking the activity alone. That is why we have the one body-body system. And then that it is in the patient's best interest to have record-keeping duties delegated, and only countersign if they have witnessed the activity or can validate that it took place. Huwag ka namang sign ng sign. Hindi mo alam para ginawa. Always follow local policies around record-keeping, delegation, and countersigning. Next slide, please. When caring for a patient, it is important to ensure good record-keeping to promote patient care and better communication. Good record-keeping is a product of good teamwork and an important tool in developing high-quality health care and reinforcing professionalism with nursing. I think this will be my last two slides. Next slide, please. As the primary point of contact for patients, us, nurses have a great deal of responsibility when it comes to documenting patient care. Nursing documentation is important for both practical and legal reasons. Next slide, please. So, please do not forget this. Always put this in your mind. If it is not written down, it was not done. If it was not done, do not write it down. So that will be all for my presentation this afternoon. Good afternoon. And these are my references. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Danilin, for that very informative discussion. I am sure that our audiences have learned a lot from you. Even as yung mga hosts, we do learn so much in your presentation po, ma'am. I just want to highlight lang yung mga informations galing kay Dr. Especially yung objective niya. Especially yung objectives ni Ma'am Danilin, yung sa yung understanding the factors that affects documentations in terms nung yung structures and yung standards of approach. Kasi diba, as a nursing student, ako personally, natatakot ako when it comes to doing such documentation kasi nga, diba, ano yung legal aspect yan lalo na sa patient, diba? So parang, what if magkamali ako? Ano yung magiging yung consequences once na magawa ko yung mistakes na yon, especially in us, di ba? Tapos lalo pa yung we're doing and practicing yung focus charting and yung NCP. Minsan napapaisip ako, ano ba yung standard when it comes to doing such NCP and focus charting? Kasi may times na parang yung tinuturo ng isang professor is different from another one. So parang naghahalo-halo siya doon. So kumbaga, yung standard when it comes to doing such documentation is nalinawan ako dito sa ni Ma'am Danilin sa kanyang presentation ngayon. How about you, Eliza?
Yes, thank you so much po, Ma'am Danilin Isidore, for that talk. Katulad din po nung kay Ace, ako po very ang dami ko pong nakuha din sa mga shinare niyo po kanina, and what I really like about yung sa talk niyo po is that yung binalik po kami doon sa basic rules in documentation, which is, I think, very, very important, no, Ace, lalo na sa atin, syempre, from mga students, di ba? It's very important na ngayon pa lang, natututunan na talaga natin yung basic. Kasi naniniwala din ako that success always comes with basics and standards, di ba? So if we really want to be magagaling na nurses in the future, we should always learn from the basic rules and standards talaga, especially po ng documentation. So thank you so much po, ma'am.
Yes, and another nga pala yung sinabi ni Dr. Write it down. Diba? It's very important talaga sa part natin. Lalo na yung pag may license ka na as a registered nurse, ilang taon mong pinaghirapan yun para makuha mo, then suddenly, di ba, because of such a medication error, anything about the documentation, just a little mistake, mawawala yun. And at the same time, hindi lang naman ikaw yung dapat talaga make mind or do things in proper way. Dapat mindful ka when it comes to writing down in the document.
Tama.
Since it's legal basis nga naman, di ba?
Tama.
Okay, thank you for that.
And once again po, thank you po. Thank you, Ace. And at this juncture po, ma'am, we will go ahead po and take some time po to take some questions from the audiences. Okay. Ayan, thank you po. So, for you guys po, please be sure po to type your questions in the chat box. But just a little reminder, due to time constraints, we can only accommodate 5 questions per speaker. So, para mas quality po ang ating question and answer portion with Ma'am Isidore. So, again po, ulitin po namin, we can only accommodate 5 questions, but i-type mo na po yung mga tanong ninyo so that ma-accommodate po namin yung mga questions ninyo.
Yes.
So,
huwag na mahiya, mag-type ng questions.
Yes.
Ayan po, ma'am, ito po for the first question. Ayan, ito po, basahin ko po. First question po, what is the role of the institution when a nurse is held liable in a documentation error?
Ito yun siya. Basta if you have already documentation error, the role of the institution is will really support you because it will really affect the institution. So, of course, the institution will have to find legal advice. And then, investigation naman ito, matagal naman ito eh. Because I have an experience of this during my quality management time, na matagal talaga siya if there is a documentation error. Kasi ang hospital will have its own investigation process. Lahat ng sides, the doctors, nurses, the patient, kailangan mo talagang i-hear. So, yun lang, the very important thing is once you have already documentation error, you report it right there and then. Na dapat within 24 hours, that is an incident report. You have to report it to your head nurse, and the head nurse will report to the clinical supervisor following the line of communication. But don't you worry, if ever there will be an error in documentation, the company will really support you. That is my company. I don't know with other company. I'm speaking of my company because my company really help us if ever kasi minsan hindi natin maano na ang nurse is sometimes very tired already, no? With work, and sometimes my problem pa at home during makita ko kasi ito because I'm a human resource director. Once I investigated, makita ko ay kaya pala ganito, so ma-understand ko kaagad. So what I did is I consult our legal counsel about it, and there the company will just help you on how to deal with it.
Ayan. Thank you so much po, ma'am. So that's for the first question. So yun na, take note po natin yun na yung support talaga ng institution, but very important within 24 hours po. Talagang dapat talaga siya ma-report po
report.
agad. Yes. Thank you po, ma'am.
So, okay, ma'am, for the second question, what should be done to those nurses with illegible handwriting?
Meron kami dito. Alam mo anong pinagawa ko? Pinapunta ko dito. Pinapunta mo na siya doon sa Director of Nursing Service Office. Then pinawrite. Pinawrite talaga ng ilang sheets. Kasi grabe na talaga ang writing. Hindi talaga parang, may mga doktor ba? Sobra pa sa doktor. Ang writing, hindi mo na mabasa ang ano ba ang sinulat niya. Observe unusual things, ano ba? Vital signs taking, even IBF, hindi mo na mabasa. So, kinol ang attention for how many times, no? Of course, may process kasi, we have to call them verbally muna, ilang times, then written reprimand, and then papunta na talaga, call the principal na, punta na sa nursing service office, and doon, reiterate sa kanya how important documentation is, in-explain talaga sa kanya na if and when di talaga mabasa ang sulat kamay niya, someday, he will be put in a legal issue. So yun, natuto naman. Gumaling konti lang, pero ganun talaga ang handwriting niya. So, as I have said in my slides, na during my time, dapat estudyante ka, kahit pangit ang penmanship mo, dapat anuhan mo talaga to make it very good handwriting. Kasi as I've said, yung CI ko, hindi talaga mag-sign ng nurse's notes ko pag pangit at hindi niya mabasa. So yun ang ginagawa namin. We call the attention, and then pinapasulat namin yung nurse, and then guide. Ang head nurse naman magpa-follow up ng cold staff. Tingnan niya kung may improvement or wala. Yun ang aming.
Yes, ma'am. That's very important nga naman. Kasi based on our experience, ako personally, may mga nakikita po akong nurses na nagda-document, lalo na sa focus charting na parang spaghetti na yung sulat nila to the point na hindi na rin namin naiintindihan pag binabasa namin yun. So, kagaya po na sinasabi ng mga clinical instructors namin, write legibly as possible. Kasi nga, sabi nga nila, hindi kayo doktor para magsulat ng spaghetti. Sabi na, doctors lang ang may karapatan magsulat nun kasi matagal silang nag-study for that, kaya ganun ang mga sulat nila. So thank you po ma'am for that advice and learnings from you po. So for the next question, please.
Ito po, for the next question, how to properly document telephone orders
to the doctor?
Kami natuto na nito. We don't allow telephone orders talaga to the doctor because we are a training hospital. If they're going to order to the patient, they have to come to the unit and order it. Never do telephone orders.
Okay, thank you po, ma'am. Very clear po. Do not
Mm-mm.
do telephone orders. Ayan.
Kasi 'di ba,
So,
kadalasan diyan nagkakaroon ng medication or errors sa mga orders lalo na sa telephone orders.
yes.
Minsan kasi hindi nila na i-write down ng maayos lalo na pag telephone orders kasi 'di ba, minsan choppy yung sinasabi ng doctor.
Yes.
So nagkakaroon ng errors talaga when it comes to that.
And sometimes talaga is they will deny the order.
Yes po.
Yes
ma'am.
po.
You do could be under legal issue. Kaya never
Yes.
have telephone order. Huwag kayo magpayag ng telephone order.
Okay po, ma'am. Noted
Thank
po.
you, ma'am.
So for the next question. What will happen if there is a poor documentation po?
Yun yung sinabi ko kanina. If you have a very poor record keeping, it will put you in a legal predicament. No? Lalo na if the patient has legal issue. So, much better talaga. Maganda talaga ang documentation nyo. And you have to follow standards, not using abbreviations. Sometimes kasi, lalo na in your generation, in your era, mahilig tayo sa text messages. Sometimes we misspell words. So never do it because it will really put you under legal issue with your poor documentation. And also this is very important in accreditation. You should have a very good documentation, especially on the policies, the processes, procedures, and because it will really follow. No, if you have a very good documentation, then you will really be approved for accreditation and you have no legal issues.
So yun, kaya nga dapat practice makes perfect. Lalo na sa ating mga student nurses na talagang pinag-aaralan natin as of this day, di ba? Even as na mga 4th year na ma'am, nagkakaroon pa rin talaga kami ng difficulties when it comes to doing such documentation. So talagang
Yes.
great advice yun from you, ma'am. So thank you for that po.
Every day is a learning process. Ako man
Yes,
din,
good,
before
ma'am.
hindi ako ganun kaano when it comes to documentation. But when you reach to a certain point, doon mo ma-realize na very good documentation will really help you a lot.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right po, ma'am. Thank you po. And for the last question, Eliza.
Yes, for the last question. Yeah, ito po, ma'am. What do you prefer, ma'am? Electronic health records or the traditional one for documenting patients' record?
For now, kasi we have also our traditional one, which is the handwritten and the electronic. Both. I preferred both. Kasi hindi talaga pwede na traditional one lang. Because, you know, we are on a digital era na. All are in a digital form. So, magsabay ka rin. You should have to have both.
Yes, thank you so much po, ma'am, for that. So tama yun, no? Kasi minsan we really have to be flexible na rin.
Yes,
Kailangan na
tama.
rin talaga nating sumabay, di ba, sa kung ano yung nire-require ng panahon. So, ma'am, thank you so much po for answering all of our questions. And I believe po we have already covered all the audience's questions right now. So, Ace?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again for answering that participants' queries. So now we will proceed to the awarding of the certificate. Ayan. So, okay, from all of us here at the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Marikina, College of Health Sciences, Batch Zorg Espero, we would like to award the certificate of appreciation to Ms. Danilyn Isidor for imparting her valuable insights and inspirations to the future professional nurses during the webinar entitled Strategies for Successful Care, Nursing Documentation, and Healthy Working Environment. Given this 19th day of March, year 2021, signed by the Dean of the College of Health Sciences, Dean Jacqueline M. Kalaykay, MAN, MSN, RN. Our subject professor for Nursing Leadership and Management, Professor Eraldo V. Nepomuceno, MAN, RN, and Ms. Christine Curay, our overall chairman of the event.
Once again, thank you po, Miss Daneline Isidore. And before we continue po to our next topic, ma'am, Miss Isidore, do you have any final advices po to our dear audiences?
To our future nurses, my colleagues, please write your documentation properly because it will really help us in our profession as a nurse. And I'm very thankful for the PLM for inviting me for this opportunity uh, to share what I have learned and what I have experienced as a nurse. So thank you once again.
Okay, Ma'am Danilyn, meron po tayong pahabol na question from a very special person po. I hope na mapagbigyan niyo po, ma'am.
Sure.
So here is his question po. Some hospital are accept text messages for doctor's order. Is this acceptable, accepting, and how will you document this?
No, in our hospital, we don't accept orders from text message. They have to write it down. Telephone order nga, hindi natin na-accept. How much more ang text message order? We don't accept.
Okay
That is
po.
not...
Okay po, ma'am. Thank you for answering that question po.
Again, thank you so much po, Ma'am
Thank you
Isidore,
so
for that
Thank you, ma'am.
wonderful discussion and advice that you have shared to us all po. We are so blessed and grateful po to have you. Salamat
Yes
po.
po, ma'am. Thank you po, ma'am. Hopefully we can ulit po kayo by the next webinar if there is a chance again.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you po.
Welcome.
So, okay, for those of you who just joined us, welcome. Okay, it is an honor for me to introduce our second speaker. He is currently the Dean of the College of Nursing in Manila Central University from 2013. He is also the National Treasurer, Executive Committee of the Philippine Nurses Association Incorporated in the present time. He is also a Board of Governor in the NCR Region Zone 2 of the Philippine Nurses Association from 2020 up until the present. He has a great experience such as the former Board of Director of Associations of Deans of the Philippine Colleges of Nursing in the NCR region from 2017 until 2019. He is a nurse consultant and chief nurse of the BA Hospital Incorporated in Bulacan from 2000 up until 2002. He is a lecturer for the Nursing Licensure Examination National Review, specialized in nursing leadership and critical care nursing from 2007 until 2012. He is also a research speaker for the national and international academic and professional organizations. To discuss our second topic and share his expertise in promoting healthy working environment, let us all give a warm welcome to Mr. Melvin Miranda, RN, MAN.
Good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon to the administrators, to the faculty of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Marikina, to the Dean of the College of Health and Health Sciences, to our Honorable Board of Nursing Chair, Dr. LCT. Blessed good afternoon to all of you, and to our future nurses. Good afternoon. Our topic for this afternoon is very timely because of our situation in public health emergency. The topic that was given to me is all about healthy working environment. It is very important for every employee, also for us nurses, to expect on how an environment, a working environment, could definitely affect our performance as a nurse in a healthcare institution or facility or in any setting. A healthy working environment as well may also consider how the organization will see and will assess how their rules, policies, and guidelines are aligned with their vision, mission, institutional philosophy, and core values. There are many issues, trends, and challenges that we are facing nowadays. But nurses are still fighting for this COVID-19 with the rendering of quality service to our patients in any setting, community or hospital setting. So next slide, please. As for every webinar, it is very important for us to give direction to all our participants. The learning outcomes and objectives that are expected are the following. Number one, participants will be able to understand the significance of having a healthy work environment in relation to the role of nurses in rendering standard of care. We will expect in our discussion, as much as possible, it could be better if it will be interactive, if there will be participation of our audience, so that this could be also a learning process for me and for all the attendees. As expected, with a healthy working environment, we will try to address what are the expectations when it comes to the principles of management and leadership in relation on how the nurse will consider the quality care, which we understand it's all about the standard of care. The standard of care that we learn from the college education, as well as you are now doing it, and as future professionals as well, you will apply those expected competencies that you have acquired, the skills, the knowledge, and attitude. However, there is a big and major significance on how a working environment will significantly affect your performance. So that's why this afternoon, it is expected for the audience and participants to understand the importance of having a healthy work environment. Number two, learning outcomes, it is expected that participants will be able to understand the benefits of having a stress-free work environment. Okay, if we talk about stress-free, it's all about, we are talking about an environment that will promote equilibrium, that will promote homeostasis, that will promote well-being, that will promote health. And in our situation nowadays, we may not get rid of stress situation or of stressful situations when it comes to COVID-19, as well as with our previous years of problems in our institution. Having a stress-free work environment is very significant in a way on how it will really change behaviors when it comes to initiative, when it comes to motivation, and when it comes to productivity on how a nurse, a healthcare practitioner will be focused enough to render the standard of care. Remember, our highest priority in our role, or one of our roles in our profession, is definitely safety. A stress-free work environment could really help us. It is not just basically the environment that we're talking about is not just only the facility. We are also talking about the relationship of every nurse to other healthy members, the role of nurses and relationship of nurses when it comes to superiors, to colleagues, subordinates. So this is what we call stress-free work environment. And if you feel the satisfaction with you and you stay in that institution, your commitment and the core values of that institution will be appreciated as well. The number three learning outcomes that we expect is the participants will be able to understand the relation of stress-free work environment in decision making. This is somehow related with the number two expectations. Decision making is very important for us nurses because our patients, the healthy members, are depending also on how we will do our bedside care, our care plan, our nursing care management, which is very essential for the holistic approach to our patient. Evidence-based practice is considered as a clinical decision-making, which a stress-free work environment can be helpful and beneficial. The people around you can mentor you. Your superiors can definitely train you. Your subordinates can definitely support you. And your colleagues can definitely respect you. So these are some situations by which if this may appear in an institution or appreciated in an institution, then you could be more competent when it comes to decision making. Next slide, please. So these are the three learning outcomes that we may expect. Talking about the issues and trends, the World Health Organization estimates a shortage of 18 million health workers by 2030, leading to poorer health outcomes and health worker well-being. 5 years ago, it was projected the need for nurses will go about 200,000 for many developing countries, such as also for first world countries as well, in the 5-year roadmap 2020. And the World Health Organization now estimates this shortage of 18 million health workers by 2030. There are many factors to consider, and one of which is the work environment of nurses. There are some concerns that have been addressed, issues that have been considered as for policy making. There are also trends that that have been adopted as well on how these best practices can really consider as a solution for these problems. The shortage of 18 million could be a serious concern because as of now, we are almost on a second year that we're experiencing pandemic. And nurses are considered as one of the frontliners, even during the time of Florence Nightingale in the Crimean War. Nurses are the ones who are definitely committed and perform their tasks, their care management to the soldiers of the Crimean War, even though they are not paid. They do not have benefits. So it was oriented already in our profession, the compassion and the nurturing attitude. But somehow, this nurturing and compassionate attitude will be developed as well if your work environment will be one of the major considerations as well to support eventually your behavior towards your focus on your profession. So with these 18 million health workers by 2030, can we be alarmed already? The answer is yes. We must prepare ourselves. We must consider all the issues that have been addressed to the government, to the various professional organizations. We are working already on how we will protect our profession. Next slide, please. With these issues and trends, other than the 18 million health workers shortage, it was a prevailing reason that poor quality of most healthcare work environments that are undermining health service delivery and driving health professionals away from their caregiving role and country. So this is not a new situation here in the Philippines. We all know for a fact that according to the World Health Professions Alliance, the Philippines are one of the major sources of nurses, of workforce, of healthcare workforce globally. And nurses here in the Philippines or Filipino nurses are the ones that have been appreciated globally when it comes to competence. But significantly, there are factors on why they leave the country. One of which is basically issues that have been addressed before, all about salary. But our government have already addressed this concern and attended to these concerns. There are still many issues, but there must be also a direction, a future direction on how this could be sustained and how our nurses in the country will be protected as well. And how is that? Through the positive work environment. Next slide, please. Other than these prevailing reasons, it was also a challenge that the 2020 State of the World Nursing, according to the World Health Organization 2020, highlighted that nurses at the frontline represents 59% of the health workforce. For a hospital setting, we all know for a fact that nurses work for 24 hours. For every shift of 8 hours, nurses are expected to be at the bedside. With the 59% of the health workforce, we are the ones that are being expected on how to promote, to prevent, and definitely render treatment with the support and collaboration with the healthy members, and expect to lead our clients towards recovery. Why this was considered as a challenge? In the public health emergency, nurses now are considered as the highly vulnerable healthcare professional when it comes to affliction and contaction, when affliction and could be affected of COVID-19. But nurses are facing these challenges as well. With much confidence, with the oath, with the pledge of nursing, we are oriented on how we have our proper attitude and behavior towards work. But sometimes we need to take into consideration that the work environment really matters. Again, as what I have mentioned unto you, it is not just talking about facilities. We're also talking about relationships with your colleagues, superiors, administrators. Can we consider also the community? Yes, because every institution or organization has also the what we call corporate social responsibility. And nurses will take place on it. It is not just only taking into consideration that in the hospital, we are open for curative and rehabilitative phase of healthcare delivery system. The hospital must also take place in cooperation and in coordination with the barangay health centers when it comes to promotive and preventive aspect of care. So that's why nurses from the community talking about the families, taking care of families, taking care of the whole community, part of the whole community, the hospitals as healthcare facilities are the ones at agencies such as the Department of Health as well as the various professions on the 59% of the health workforce as attended or as addressed by the World Health Organization in 2020. Could it be a challenge? The answer is yes. Because sooner or later, if this will continue, hoping not, that could be possibly be controlled because the nurses as the frontliners could be the one who will exert the effort to prevent its spread. And be proud of yourselves, future nurses. Be proud of the nurses as well and frontliners who are attending this webinar because we will be part of the health workforce as we fight against COVID-19 in our present times. Next slide, please. With these challenges of addressing the 59% of the health workforce, there are also other challenges. Next slide. Other than as well that nurses have been identified with problems on mental health. We have talked about stress. Okay, we have talked about stress. The stress will definitely be identified for nurses at the start of the community quarantine. Please project the last slide, please. The previous slide. Because during the time when nurses are not aware of the causes, the signs and symptoms of COVID-19, there are still no studies that are being published, literatures where we can gather actually on how we will prevent this. It causes also a problem with the mental health of our nurses that makes the situation a problem with stressful events. Can you imagine that this statistical presentation, that 3% during that time before and at the start, 3% they felt the little less stress. 2%, 2% after or at the start, they uh, feel a lot of stress rather than the usual stress. But if you will try to compare at the start or at the beginning or before the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, almost 34% they feel more stress than usual. But at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the 53% are taken into account that they feel a lot more stress than usual. The next question is that of, do healthcare institutions also take into consideration wellness programs on mental health? Do they have also programs which could prepare our nurses for debriefing? Do they have also psychosocial programs for nurses who are at risk of COVID-19, also with their families? So these are some initiatives which somehow we expect to promote also a healthy working environment. It is not just only considering the welfare of nurses, but the welfare also of your families, the welfare also of the communities, the welfare also of our co-employees, co-nurses, colleagues, and superiors of the healthcare institution. So this is a proof by which the stressful situations are really happening in our institutions. Next slide, please. Because of the stressful events, it added also some of the statistics wherein healthcare workers are considered as the frontliners. So as expected, they are the ones that had been part of the statistics when it comes to affliction of COVID-19. And worse consideration, some of them lead to fatality. In the September 2020, the challenge of the health workers have died in the Philippines as of September 2020 is 56 healthcare workers have died in the Philippines as of September 2020. And with the statistics as of December 2020, 21 are nurses who are recorded on the fatality. So this sacrifice are really considered because during this time, the vaccines, the security, the occupational safety is really much expected on how the institution will give the compassion and care also, not just only to stakeholders, but also to their own employees. Next slide, please. And with this census of 21 nurses, it could give us the idea on how the government, how the global organizations will give solutions on this problem with work environment, with the fatality, with the stressful events, with it comes to problems with benefits, problems with the nurses who are going out of the country, and our healthcare workers here in the country to face this public health emergency. There are solutions and those who may have advocacy in a worldwide setting. The World Health Professions Alliance, when it comes to global organizations representing the world's nurses with International Council of Nurses on its advocacy of stand up for positive practice environment. The World Health Professions Alliance have this advocacy on positive practice environment are together with the organizations of dentists, pharmacists, medical doctors, physical therapists. So they are not just only considering positive practice environment to nurses, But considering the International Council of Nurses, anything that is related to positive practice environment, it is considered as one of the advocacy on how the nurses will be protected, on how we will definitely promote welfare. Next slide, please. Here in the Philippines, how the welfare of the nurses are being attended when it comes to work environment. The Philippine Nurses Association, as the Professional Regulatory Commission's accredited professional organization, is a member of the International Council of Nurses. So that's why for future nurses, it is very important for you to be members of professional organizations, specialty organizations, and interest groups as well, because you will be updated and you will be given an opportunity on how you will participate accordingly when it comes to promotion of positive practice environment, or PPE for nurses. Actually, the Philippine Nurses Association considered this as one of the program trust. So that's why anything or any issues that address about nurses' welfare, the Philippine Nurses Association will always be in the front line to give assistance, to give what you call this, mediation to the concerned agencies, and definitely attend to our nurses so that to align our roles and responsibilities in PNA with the program trust. So with as a member of the International Council of Nurses, the Philippine Nurses Association considered also this as one of the advocacy, not just only globally, because nurses are being appreciated also as competent and trained nurses all over the world, so as with our own country. Next slide, please. With the Philippine Nurses Association, with the International Council of Nurses, we come to a point on what is positive practice environment. Actually, a positive practice environment is a healthcare setting that supports excellence and decent work condition. Question: how can you say that a healthcare setting supports excellence? If you will notice, in most of the vision statements of healthcare institutions, they considered excellence as one of their components of vision. Because considering and upholding the culture of excellence considers the what we call positive practice environment. It may not just only focus, excellence may not just only focus to stakeholders who are the patients, but also promoting excellence to our employees in healthcare institutions such as nurses. And what could be the measurement of excellence? The measurement of excellence is the attainment of vision. If nurses are satisfied with their work, there are less errors and complaints that are being addressed by the stakeholders. Nurses are being appreciated with their work performance. Legal protocols and minimum standards are being considered and being implemented in that institution. So that is a measure of excellence. And when it comes to decent work conditions, this will give us the idea on what are the factors that nurses are committed for over years in their work environment. And if you will ask them, when it comes to decent work conditions, number one, if they are being paid accordingly. Number two, if they have received the benefits that they deserve. Number three, if if the hospitals or the institutions are providing personal and professional development programs, and at the same time, if they are not just only focused on the physical aspects of their employees with nurses, but also with the holistic approaches through their wellness programs. And the outcomes of this excellence and decent work will benefit the organization and the community through quality care, cost effectiveness, and people-centered healthcare services. This is the summation of quality. The basis is excellence and decent work condition. And that is what we call positive practice environment. Next slide, please. When we have the positive practice environment, even not just only in healthcare institutions, even in nursing schools, okay? Even in local government units, in city health offices, this applies positive practice environment. Similarly, when it comes to nursing education, even in school, if the administrators are very supportive of the needs of their employees and compassion comes in, they can definitely develop this relationship when the administrators as well sees the whole picture of the contribution of individualized efforts of their employees. And what could be the outcomes and the impact of this? The faculty and the employees will perform well, will basically align their focus on the performance through the institutional vision, mission, and the institutional philosophy and core values. And that could be a measure of excellence and decent work condition. When we talk about positive practice environment, we are talking also to the extent of 4 areas of what to consider to promote healthy working environment or positive practice environment. It was mentioned by one of the nurses that it improves performance and builds professional self-worth through professional recognition and empowerment. Remember, there are also management theories by which it could support also this idea that having a positive practice environment on professional recognition and empowerment will give satisfaction for nurses in her workplace. That's why it indicates here it builds professional self-worth. Developing the person's loyalty, but at the same time, you are developing their confidence when it comes to personal and professional development. As according to one of the theories such as Hawthorne effect, if you can still remember the Hawthorne effect, the people are more productive when they feel appreciated. That is according to Elton Mayo. When Mayo identifies this principle, there are many measures on how the administration, on how the colleagues, on how the work environment can be useful towards productivity of employees who are the nurses. And feeling appreciated when it comes to many forms could be considered. So this could be some forms of professional recognition and empowerment. Just like in nursing education, when the dean appreciates the performance of faculty, the faculty will consider it as an appreciation that will imbibe motivation, that will improve further his performance to higher level, that will envision his future contribution for the improvement of the quality education of the college and the institution. So just the same as for the hospital, you may promote also this self-worth. And that is what we call empowerment. If we consider empowerment, we are considering the person's abilities, the person's strengths, and even weaknesses as a vital measure on how you will improve. Negativity could be expected, but if you are a nursing leader or a nurse leader as well, not just only a manager, you can support on how you will promote professional self-worth. And these are the measures on how to promote professional recognition and empowerment. Next slide, please. Actually, when it comes to professional recognition, we can actually consider how the persons could be, how the persons, the nurses could be appreciated in the institution. Number one, recognize the full range of competencies. What do you mean by the full range competencies? Each nurses are oriented with their duties and responsibilities. If they have completed a certain task, appreciate them of that accomplishment, because the reward on that appreciation is basically how the what how the nurse will basically contribute more and possibly mentor other nurses to contribute to the attainment of the vision, mission, and core values of the institution. And with such, recognition of the full range competencies could be more promote productivity as well. Another, when it comes to promote professional autonomy, we could increase the level of independence of our nurses, because this is also a way on how you will promote confidence and competence as well, while they decide on their own when it comes to any care management that will be rendered to patients. You may involve them also when it comes to decision making in the ward, because when it comes to professional autonomy or individualized autonomy, when the nurse develop this clinical decision making, you are also enhancing this person's involvement when it comes to evidence-based practice. And when this person have this knowledge, it's already a power. And that power can be useful and can be relevant and could be meaningful when it comes to the discharge of performance of roles. Another way of doing professional recognition and empowerment is recognize and reward employee. To what extent? It's not just always monetary, could be a way that you can motivate the person through reward. Empowering them to increase commitment and loyalty to the institution is just giving if you are giving them an appreciation of sharing their stories, sharing their journey on how they become nurses in that institution, sharing their journey of achievement, for example, outside the hospital, when they accomplish or they have been recognized by the community. And if the institution also recognizes that effort, then that also promotes professional empowerment. As when we are talking about to empower health professionals, empowering health professionals is also related to giving them or promoting the what we call professional autonomy or independence. Remember, when we talk about the career pathway, if you can remember the Benner's model, when you nurses, future registered nurses will be in the entry level and be considered yourself as novice in the practice, your level of independence could still be considered less because you are dependent on the mentoring of your head nurse or the staff or your colleagues or senior nurses. But as you go along with your practice, it gives also the confidence if your head nurses are giving you all the information. And when you decide on your own, and the measure of success is through the patient's evaluation of care, and eventually the client achieved the optimum health and discharged accordingly, that is a great achievement. So with the measure of how the head nurse empower him, it starts with orientation, it goes with the mentoring, then the nurse that we are talking about, the novice nurse that we're talking about, are already confident in the performance of her roles. And sooner or later, as you are building his focus or her focus when it comes to developing or skills development, the next step for you is to be in the advanced beginner to mentor him or her when it comes to leadership skills. That is empowerment. You are sharing also your skills. You are mentoring these individuals also to develop the same skills as what you did when you are on the entry level of novice. And other than that, it is also a way of professional recognition and empowerment when you encourage interprofessional collaborative practices. Remember, during the fundamentals of nursing, we have been oriented of what is the importance of the health team members. We are not katulong, we are katuwang. So meaning we have equal roles when it comes to health team members. We have equal contribution when it comes to collaborative practice. So that's why it gives also the equal recognition that we nurses are members of the health team and we are part of the total care of the patient. And if the patient recover and achieve optimum health, the nurses be recognized as not just only an assistant, not just only as contributors, but as the one also who have the major role when it comes to the achievement of success, when it comes to the optimum health of that client. And we all know for a fact that this may also relate to the management theory of social process by Mary Pollet, that participative decision making is very relevant when you are promoting also empowerment. Why? Because you are developing the social relationship and professional relationship of your nurses. You are not just only confined in your role as a nurse and nursing care management, but when it comes to the totality of your care management, when you involve yourselves also with the insights and inputs of the healthy members. So that also promotes empowerment. Actually, with this number one, if you're giving appreciation, if you're giving opportunities to nurses to grow professionally and personally, then that is what we call empowerment. Second concern or area in the positive practice environment. Next slide, please. So I may expect questions later. So as according to one of the nurse, it enables and encourages health workers to stay in their jobs, in their profession, and in their countries. The second area to promote a positive practice environment is management practices and incentives. Next slide, please. When it comes to management practices and incentives, there are different incentive system with government and with private institutions. We are aware of the SG 15 or the salary grade 15 that could be much applicable for the government nurses. However, since with the Philippine Nurses Association, with other legislators, with the PRC Board of Nursing working hand in hand to establish a comprehensive nursing bill, then this has been part of the proposed provisions to improve the incentive system for nurses. So it means that here in the country, we are not just idle on a side that we are not doing. The Professional Regulatory Commission, specifically the Board of Nursing, are also working together with professional organizations, with legislators, so that to achieve the positive practice environment. So when it comes to this, it is also considered that giving or considering the flexible incentive system is part also of one of the management theories of scientific management theory by Frederick Taylor. Frederick Taylor is the father of management, right? So father of the scientific management theory. And he emphasized there that the proper incentive may be considered as one of the best practice to promote positive practice environment. So these are some situations on how you will promote management practices and incentives. Number one, commit to equal opportunity. What does it mean? Commit equal opportunity, it means that if we do have, for example, staff development program, we will also consider not just only the entry level. We must also take into consideration those who are nurses who may already have administrative functions. So the equal opportunity that we are telling here is that of nurses, even entry level, and nurses who have administrative function may have equal opportunity for professional and personal growth. And when it comes to the equal opportunities also, there are policies, okay, institutional policies, as well as with our law of Republic Act 9173, that gives also the chance for nurses with the stipulations of provisions on how the rights of nurses will be protected accordingly. So that is a promotion of equal opportunity. And if the institution are promoting and have the respect and courtesy to the law of Republic Act 9173 and to the conduct of code of ethics of nurses, then you are considering equal opportunities for our nurses. Another is provide adequate and timely compensation. Okay, with the compensation that we're talking about, it may have a different situation for government, it may have a different situation for private institutions. But what I have told you now, that through the various professional organizations such as the Philippine Nurses Association, the PRC Board of Nursing, and other government agencies that supports to improve the compensation, as we are also considering as the core of our concern is the welfare of nurses, and one of which is referring to the compensation. So that's why when it comes to the legislation, it is very important that hoping sooner or later nurses will be represented in the legislative body, so that there will be a voice on how the nurse will put these issues, these concerns into provisions and considered it as in making law and policies, so that this will lead to the protection of nurses, and this may also consider what compensation will be deserved for nurses who are working, and that's one of the positive practice environment. Next, maintaining effective performance. Considering the maintain or considering the effective performance, if you say effective performance, this could be measured by the satisfaction of the stakeholders. This could be also observed by the bosses or the superiors of nurses. Effective performance is very important because this could be a measure on how you are aligned with, again, with the vision, mission, and core values of the institution. Whenever there will be problems with efficiency, efficiency is, it comes before you become an effective nurse, you need to be more also efficient on how you will maximize the resources accordingly in the institution. And since your goal is quality patient care, excellent patient care as it states in most of the vision as premier hospital, then this could be achieved as well if you are efficient. And that comes out on how you will be effective as well. How you will do it? You can definitely be mentored and make you realize that you have the potential to become a head nurse. That will promote a specific personal growth. And this, if this could be a deserving to nurses, there is an institutional policy on how this will be processed. So that is now the what we call one of the best practices in management. When it comes to offering decent and flexible incentives, we all know for a fact that nowadays our concern is occupational safety and health. And when it comes to decent and flexible incentives, there are situations that some of the institutions are offering hazard pay. But we cannot anymore oblige other institutions to have hazard pay, because there are some institutions who may just depend, as most specifically in private institution, may just depend on the income of the institution. However, when we will consider the proposed nursing bill, these provisions had been proposed so that this could apply also for the protection and welfare of our nurses. So see how our nursing leaders are working. Involve employees in planning. Involvement is very important because their contributions as well, insights, shared insights as well are very important to us. If they felt that their insights and contributions are very important, then they will feel also that they're important on their existence in that institution because they have contributed as well to solutions. Another is engaging employees in continuous assessment. This is somehow a measure also of how an employee is committed. When he observed, when an employee or a nurse observed that this may cause the problem with the organization, the employee may have the commitment to address already the issue so that to prevent a more complex situation. That is engaging the employees on this situation. Foster a culture of mutual trust. The mutual trust that we are talking about is that of when although there when we go back to the theory X and Y of Douglas MacGregor, we have two types of manager, the theory X and the theory Y. The theory X are those that have been identified lazy when they are not being monitored by the nurse or by the head nurse or by the superior, and the theory Y is the one who is responsible and productive even without monitoring. Hoping nurses could be in the theory Y, who are more responsible and productive even without their superior. And that is what we call loyalty and commitment. That is what we call fostering the culture of mutual trust, opportunity to increase the level of independence, the level of autonomy to decide, and have been appreciated. Your efforts have been appreciated by the organization. Then that may concludes culture of mutual trust. Next slide, please. The third area of the positive practice environment is all about occupational health and safety. As according to the nurse, it keeps employees safe so they remain healthy, motivated, and productive. Actually, we have the Occupational Safety and Health Act. This is actually a law which will give us the idea on how the nurses and employees will be protected accordingly by the employer. It states there the role of the employers, and it states also there on how the employees will be protected. Nowadays, in the public health emergencies, at the start of the community quarantine last year of March, one of the main concern is about the supply of the personal protective equipment. The personal protective equipment is stipulated in the OSH Act, or Occupational Safety and Health Act, that the employer has this responsibility to provide PPEs for their employees as protection. But somehow, because of some concerns when it comes to limitation in the income flow, there are some limitations when it comes to resources. This caused a problem as one of the major problems at the start of the first quarter of pandemic. However, there are some agencies, the government agencies, and some professional organizations and some non-government organizations who attend to this need. And that is when comes in the collaboration with NGOs, government agencies, professional organizations, government agencies in the promotion of positive practice environment. Why we come up with those initiatives? Because we find it very important to protect our frontliners and who are the nurses. Next slide, please. How we will basically promote occupational health and safety. Adhere to safe staffing levels. So what do you mean to adhere to safe staffing levels? Actually, according to the Nursing Service Administration Manual of the Department of Health, it indicates there that there is a corresponding ratio of nurse to patient. Okay? Because you are also considering the level of care that is significant for a nurse to perform to a critical care patient. So that's why if you notice, the ratio of a nurse to a critical care patient is less rather than critical care patients, because the critical condition of the patients may lead to either complications, a more rigid monitoring of the nurses, which may refer the client's condition for any findings that may alarm the physicians or the attending physicians, and may consider a care management or a revision, an enhancement of the care management. So this may give the nurse give the nurse opportunity to be more focused and to save energy as well of attending to that patient. So that's why there are considerations that supposedly a nurse is attending to 2 to 4 patients at a time. But with the situations like in our case of problems with manpower constraints, there are some institutions nowadays who are closing wards, who are closing units because they lack manpower. And that is not because that the hospital is encountering problem with finances, but also they are protecting their manpower or nurses not to experience the what we call stressful situations, because we have to consider the nurses capabilities when it comes to attending to the patient care, and that is focusing on quality, and that is focusing also on positive practice environment, on excellence. Because if, for example, we will go beyond on the nurse patient ratio, there could be a possibility of a compromise that may affect quality. But Filipino nurses are very competitive and very trainable. So that's why we can still tolerate the situations even under inconvenience. Another is we can adopt occupational health, safety, and wellness policies. So I have presented to you the problem when it comes to the 34% before the pandemic of stress level, and becomes 54% at the level of the stress when the COVID-19 pandemic starts. Because remember, at that time, we don't have yet definite guidelines on how to prevent the COVID-19. Second, we still do not have yet enough and sufficient literature to respond accordingly on how we will be prepared accordingly to treat COVID-19 patients, and what will be the protection of nurses. And during that time, we still don't have the vaccines to promote to boost the immunity of our nurses. So that's why the anxiety level increases during the time affecting mental health. So what will be the role? That's part of the occupational health and safety, going back to the principle of Abraham, focus on the hierarchy of needs. Okay? When the nurse situation affects the self-esteem and self-actualization, your focus is you need to go back to the physiologic needs, because probably the physiologic needs are the ones that have been affected. So that's why they have reached the problem up to the self-esteem and self-actualization. So that is why nurses have been oriented on the concepts of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Other than that, it is also very important to the theory of William Auchi. William Auchi's theory Z. Okay. In the William Auchi's theory Z, or management theory Z, when the administration is giving concern, holistic concern to the employees, long-term employees, the scientists. So maybe there are some attendees here who can relate to us, who are graduates of 90s, who work in most of the institution and start with the starting salary of almost 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 a month. But 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 during that time, even though with that type of salary, but the hospital that we are working with is giving us opportunities on staff development, giving us opportunities on how we will develop our competencies. They have given us opportunities on extended support to our families. Then this compassion leads to the productivity and commitment to the institution. So that also promotes the what we call occupational health as well, because wellness as well. They are not just only considering your welfare, but also your welfare in the family. So another is when we consider also to adhere to regulatory frameworks. This is one of the considerations if the institution are really compliant with DOLE. That's why, remember, in any institution, hospital, there must be a who oversees and monitors all about occupational health and safety. And I know some of you can relate to this because nowadays in the CHED, we are talking about the limited face-to-face. And with the limited face-to-face on how we will protect our students, our faculty, and employees. That's why the CHED established in the provision on the guidelines on the creation of crisis management committee based on the specific protocols that had been strictly implemented by DOH and DOLE. So if these regulatory agencies and institutions are compliant with these regulatory agencies when it comes to concern with other is promote healthy work-life balance. Okay, healthy work-life balance. You are not just only considering the person's performance and well-being within the hospital. You may also take into consideration on her welfare upon her existence in the community. And that extends the what we call the corporate social responsibility. And if there are employees who could be, for example, a victim of a disaster, a victim of or a problem with health concerns with the families. So one of the benefits that they give is the nurses may have the health maintenance organization cards, which is extended to their families. So that extends a specific compassion to their employees, and that concerns with the occupational health and safety. As what I've told you with the law, if the hospital concerns with the provision of the PPEs, that's one of the measures that they really implement the law and they really on the number 4 is education and this is also empowering your nurses. As on according to the Benner's model, we have the novice, the advanced beginner, until to the level of expert. Nurses could be oriented through that career pathway, but how they could develop that? They could develop that with the relationship and mentoring of their superiors, of the administration, and with the support as well of the organizational officials. So it mentioned here that it provides opportunities to learn, develop, progress, and save lives. Remember, they learn meaning it's a continuous process, a change in behavior. It's also considered as a power, knowledge, because if you have that knowledge, it boosts confidence. Develop these opportunities help you to develop because, for example, on the entry level, you are confident on skills development. Now, it is time for you to have your leadership skills. Other than, for example, you have been promoted to head nurse, the next step is for advancement and innovativeness. So you may engage yourself to research findings or to research and creative works, which you, for example, on that level, will now contribute to the organization's welfare and alignment with vision and mission. And one of our motto as nurses is definitely to save lives. And how you will save lives? The competence. Okay, this has been the school and your college or the College of Health Sciences in Pamantasan and Lungsod ng Marikina, with the effort of your dean and faculty, are implementing the BSN curriculum to the best of their capacity for you to meet the program outcomes. So that is the same that we are also preparing you to become professional nurses. And once you work now in the professional professional level, the institution where you're working now will be the one who will continue that learning for you to develop the expected competencies for the attainment of their vision, mission, and core values. Next slide, please. When it comes to education and information, it is very important that can relate this to the theory of organizational theory by Max Weber. When education and training, the need for legalized and formal authority. Okay? If, for example, the need for legalized and formal authority, according to Max Weber, is this the transformational leadership could be applicable so that when you are promoting personal and professional growth, it is all the willingness of the person, not on the reward. That's transformational. But in the organizational theory, it must be formalized. It means that there must be a structured staff development program or a training program for the nurses. For example, on the entry level, if they are on the skills development for head nurses, on the leadership skills, for the supervisors, is on the advancement and innovativeness will be the focus. For the higher level, which is expert, this could already consider the organizational leadership. So these focuses will continue them to develop. However, you may now be aware that if the organization are definitely will be exposed with opportunities to develop leadership skills. The head nurses who may possibly soon have the capacity to lead as supervisors, the organization may give the opportunities on how to engage themselves into research and advancement as well as innovations. So these are very important factors that the staff are being developed by the in-house staff development program other than with the opportunities. How much more if you will represent the institution in outside professional activities. So that may gain also the motivation of the nurses and loyalty as well. So orientation, that's why we do orientation programs as well. The orientation program is somehow the right to inform. Okay, as an entry level nurse in that institution, you need to know the policies, because the policies will be the one that will set your standard, that will set standards on how you will act properly and work appropriately to the institution setting. And it is a very important, which could be the role of the human resources department and could be the role of the nursing service office. Another is to foster effective supervisory mentoring. Actually, mentoring and coaching programs is very important, because if you say mentoring and coaching programs, you are sharing your learned responsibilities, your learned skills to the one who may have the potential, even though for those who may have the weakness or shortcomings when it comes to the skills, you could be the change element to that. You could be a catalyst on that area wherein you can promote also development of that person in the entry level. So make yourself as your existence in the institution. Next slide, please. So we have indicated the 4 areas in the positive practice environment. And when it comes to these 4 areas, the positive practice environment may consider health professionals to be more if they are trained, if they are mentored, if they are definitely focused on responsibilities on occupational safe and healthy, you may promote basically the commitment and loyalty, and the right of the healthcare professional for healthcare information, much as well as with the universal healthcare, is also very important for them to also realize their rights as healthcare workers. So next slide, please. I think this will be the last slide. We will come to a point of the conclusion on how we will measure the learning outcomes that have been presented a while ago. So with the learning outcomes, next slide, please. It was presented the 3 learning outcomes that are presented a while ago when it comes to what has been expected with this webinar. So number 1, significance of having a healthy environment. As what I've told you with the presented reasons and ways on having a healthy work environment is also a stress-free environment. I have presented to you the 4 areas on how to promote positive practice environment. I have presented also to you some of the agencies who are working together to promote positive practice environment, namely the International Council of Nurses, Health Professions Alliance, and we have the International Council of Nurses, the ICN, the Philippine Nurses Association, in collaboration with the PRC Board of Nursing, other specialty organization, and interest groups. And with the program trust, this could also promote a unified insight and competencies to render standard of care. The number 2 is benefits of having a stress-free work environment will basically promote, as what we have mentioned in our discussion, promote commitment and loyalty. As I have mentioned to you, some of the theories, like we have mentioned about Henry Fayol, wherein in the systematic management theory, he mentioned that one of the principles of management is remuneration and motivation of personnel. According also to Frederick Taylor, scientific management theory, that proper incentive and training of workers are very relevant. To Max Weber, it indicated organizational theory on how you will consider the need for legalized and formal authority. Elton Mayo, wherein Houghton effect considered people are more productive when they are being appreciated. As well as, according to social process of Mary Pollitt, that participative decision-making will promote a positive work environment. I have emphasized also to you the one that could promote also a stress-free working environment is attending to the physiologic needs. And what is the principle that we need to consider as nurses? According to Abraham Maslow's, the hierarchy of needs. The hierarchy of needs will be our prime consideration as our core knowledge of concepts on how to have stress-free work environment. And I have emphasized when it comes to number 3 on the stress-free environment in decision-making, if the nurse is focused, he could develop personal and professional development. He could apply critical thinking through the evidence-based practice, and it could promote one of the management theory, according to William Auchi, the theory Z of long-term employment due to the holistic concern to employees. I hope I have met the expectations for the learning outcomes. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
All right. Thank you so much po, Mr. Miranda, for that very relevant and relatable discussion.
Yes.
Sure po ako na marami pong yung mga student nurses po natin, but we also have professional nurses
Yes, that's
right
true.
now in attendance. So thank you so much po. Ako po ang affects our work, di ba po, in giving talaga care to our clients and to our patients. Ano talaga siya, major and big talaga, malaki talaga yung significance niya, 'di ba, para sa atin lahat, especially sa mga nurses natin. Lalo na po ngayong pandemic, 'di ba? Lalo na ngayong pandemic.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, 'di ba? From the very beginning, nurses talaga yung sumasalo, 'di ba? From the very start, nasa frontline talaga. So, imagine the bearing, 'di ba? Kaya ako po, para sa akin, talagang deserving talaga ang ating mga nurses to call them our modern day heroes.
Yes.
Tama.
Just to add on lang dun, Eliza, no? Just kagaya nga na sinabi mo, during this pandemic, ang hirap talaga ng situations ng mga nurses. Not just even nurses, but even the other healthcare professionals. Even before pandemic naman talaga, there is a shortage when it comes to nurses and other healthcare professionals. Di ba nga, sa ating mga student nurses, once na pag tinanong tayo, bakit ka nag-nursing? Karamihan ang sasagot kasi gusto namin mag-abroad. Why?
Yes.
Because kasi nga maraming mas maganda yung opportunity sa abroad. And just to share ko lang kasi there is one senator, I don't want to name the senator, pero nakausap namin siya before. And then nalaman niya na nursing students kami. Ang sabi niya sa amin, okay yan, patuloy niyo, paggalingan niyo yung pag-aaral niyo para once nakagraduate kayo, makapag-abroad kayo. So, okay, sabi ko, okay po, Mr. Senator. But anyways, yun nga, di ba? Through this pandemic, ma-realize mo talaga na
how important it is to have a healthy environment for nurses and other healthcare professionals. Especially ngayon, di ba, there are some issues na instead na i-boost ang moral ng mga nurses and other healthcare professionals, minsan na discriminate pa sila by other people just by seeing them wearing white. Di ba? Instead na i-appreciate natin yung mga ginagawa nila, minsan na discriminate pa sila. So bumababa yung moral ng mga nurses, which is, I think, very sad and detrimental sa part natin. Kasi nga, di ba, we pledge, they pledge, tapos at the end, parang, di ba, nade-degrade, kawawa yung mga healthcare workers talaga natin. So I think that we need to really appreciate them. Kagaya nga dun sa sinabi ni Sir na Hawthorne effect, that appreciation can boost someone's performance. So talaga, instead na i-degrade natin, let us appreciate and boost their morals.
Yes, and also yes. And also imagine na if yung mga nurses natin, if they are well compensated, 'di ba? And they are supported, 'di ba? It will really result to a successful care talaga. And also katulad po ng sinabi kanina ni Sir Miranda, no, recognition, appreciation, compensation, respect, and competency goes a long way. So
maybe Miss Santiago, I just want to ask Mr. Ace Gabriel, what have you felt at the time that that senator mentioned to you that after graduation you will gear towards working abroad?
Nung una po,
how do you feel about it?
Parang medyo na-frustrate po ako that time kasi instead na sabihin niya na since nga meron pong shortage of nurses dito sa Pilipinas, bakit parang mas nauna pa niyang naisip na you need to work, once naka-graduate ka, you can go abroad. Kumbaga, di ba sabi nga nila, yung nationalism and patriotism, dapat na dun sa'yo eh. Pero kasi nga po, I also understand his side naman po na, yun nga po yung reason, most of the reasons why do people or nursing students take nursing, kasi nga po, there's a great opportunity for them abroad, kumbaga to improve their life, kung magkaroon ng magandang buhay. Kasi di ba, as we all know naman, we are family-oriented. Filipinos are family-oriented. Mas uunahin natin yung kapakanan ng family natin, mayangat sila sa kahirapan. So, yun po, naintindihan ko rin naman po yung sinabi ni Mr. Senator.
Maybe somehow, Ace, you may respond na, please help us to stay.
Yes.
Please help us to stay because they are the ones in the government, and they may have the role specifically on some of the opportunities to work on a law for the Filipino nurses to stay in the Philippines. So why not? But anyway, there are many factors to consider.
Yes po. I just want to acknowledge, sir, yung ano nyo po, no, yung advocacy nyo and yung pagbibigay nyo sa amin ng free time for this webinar po. Thank you so much. We really appreciate po talaga.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, so as of the moment, we may now move on to our question and answer for the second topic. Okay, I think, sir, marami pong natuwa dun sa topic nyo. So if okay lang po sa inyo, we can ask,
sure.
Pwede po kami ask more than 5 questions po.
Sure, the more questions, the more chances of learning.
Okay, guys, marami chance na magtanong. Okay, for the first question, what are the available programs for nurses during this pandemic po?
Referring to programs of institutions, right? Programs of institutions or programs of our government agencies?
Po, siguro to, sir.
Okay.
For so general.
What are the available programs? So probably this is referring to the welfare. As what I've told you, the government, that's why we have the law, the Republic Act 9173, is also to promote the welfare of our nurses. So they have some of the advocacies which I have mentioned to you, problems with mental health. So that's why the DOH have enhanced the mental capacity programs that will be one of the focus of some of the institutions. So they have enhanced those programs and suggested those programs for the mental health of nurses. Second is on the physical resilience of nurses. Physical resilience because we need to prioritize as frontliners pertaining to the personal protective equipment. Okay, personal protective equipment that had been one of the struggles before of the nurses, because that may only be the one to protect. And remember, as what I've told you, that it's part of the Occupational Safety and Health Act That is a law that the employers are responsible to promote the protection of the nurses. So that's the programs. Other programs also is during the pandemic, I think they have offered also some of the programs for nurses that are extended to their families and those who are COVID-19, I think. So they have told you that that extends compassion if the nurse themselves feel that if it is extended to the family, it may promote specifically commitment and some of the agencies as the department also their participation as frontline. It has a corresponding equivalency of the CPD units and when they do volunteer work. So these are the some of the programs and some of the what you call this memoranda that had been released by the PRCBON. For the Philippine Nurses Association and other specialty organization, since the advantage of these professional organizations, all chapters have been spread throughout the country, and they do have also international chapters. So that's why these programs may not just only confine the welfare programs and not just only confine sa national level, but also on the international level, which Filipino nurses are also working.
Yan. Ang dami palang programs ng ating
Yes.
government sa nurses during pandemic. Pero if I may ask, sir, in your own po as a professional healthcare worker, do you think po ba yung mga program is already enough for our healthcare workers as of these days sa pandemic po?
For now, with the efforts of the LGUs, if you will notice, we're involving all the LGUs as the prime movers of the implementation of the program, because if the DOH is the one that has the centralized program, the next challenge is how it will be cascaded to the grassroots. So we might say that it may not be totally 100% that had been cascaded, because there are some LGUs who lack resources in the implementation of the program. So hoping the government may focus on those areas and LGUs to support specifically on how to implement programs the way they're implementing to NCR. Considering the NCR is the epicenter of the COVID-19, but we must also consider the other extended programs to other areas of the country through the presence of the LGU. So that's why the government is with the LGU on the healthcare and frontline workers. And one of the programs that are now being implemented is the vaccination program.
Yun. So nasa LGU po talaga ang improvement, which is I think dito sa Marikina talaga namang well improved at talagang ginagawa. Mararamdaman mo talaga yun.
I agree with you.
Yes po. So okay po for the next question, please.
There has been a recently released article that says, according to the Philippine Nurses Association, there is no shortage of nurses in our country, but there is a maldistribution. This is in response to the call of the Philippine Hospital Association that they are requesting the help of the government in to lend them nurses who are not currently working in the healthcare field to work in the private hospitals due to the increasing cases of COVID-19 patients at this time.
Okay. So when we talk about the shortage of nurses, we're talking about the available manpower. Let's try to imagine when the IATF implemented the guidelines that when you're exposed to a confirmed case, you need to have the self-quarantine for almost 2 weeks that you will not report. So with that situation, if for example, most of the manpower of that institution are exposed or were exposed to COVID-19 cases, who will be left in the institution? So I think with that, the maldistribution that they're talking about here is that of we need to support a strong data to identify where are the nurses now, where are the nurses, because we all know that there are nurses who are not engaged into hospital work. Some of them are working into the non-hospital work, and they stay there due to the previous reasons, obviously with the compensation. So but hoping, encouraging those nurses, and we have noticed that those nurses coming from this industry are getting towards the nursing profession, because it increases now the number of takers in the nurse licensure examination. So I think the challenge now is to really identify the number. Are we really having the shortage of nurses, or are we considering that there are nurses but they are not hired accordingly to the proper plantilla or to appropriate plantilla or to the position where they must be identified as healthcare practitioner. Although we are basically aware that there are many fields in nursing. It is not just only in the hospital. We have public health, we have the nursing education, but moreover, what is lacking now, as they call the shortage of nurses, are more on the hospital nurses. That's why if you can remember those issues, that there are situations like they banned the migration of the nurses going abroad because they want to secure our manpower here in the Philippines. But as well, it counter response. The counter response is we must not deprive the nurses to work abroad because it's their right. So these are the issues that have been addressed to the government, and I think the Department of Labor and Employment and other professional organizations attended to it so that to support this problem. So we need to have a support of strong data. So I think this is now a program that are being initiated by the PRC Board of Nursing together with other professional organizations.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Miranda. Next question po.
Okay, for the next question, what are the recognitions that the institution can give to the nurses doing a good work?
Okay. So recognitions that will promote satisfaction of nurses to continue work in spite of stressful event. For example, who among you, when you heard the news that we have 5,000 new cases in a day, then you're about to have a schedule of your work the other day with that identified new 5,000, the highest cases in one day. Let's face it and let's be realistic that it may cause anxiety. However, the assurance of the institution on how they will be protected accordingly is one of the what we call recognition of their existence. How? As what I've told you, if the institution provides all the protocols and resources for their protection, is one of recognition, because it's an appreciation that we care for our employees and for our nurses or front lines. We are with you through this provision of the resources. Other recognitions could be if you will share their stories as well. If, for example, if you have talked to nurses with their lived experiences and share their stories to others, it will give inspiration for their to others as well, and that inspiration is the one that will keep the person motivated. That's also a recognition. So a recognition, for example, the best nurse uh, that best nurse could be a role model, and monetary is part, because I know for a fact if I will insert this, the Maslow hierarchy of needs, the physiologic needs, I need money. I need money to support the physiologic needs. So that's why I may not get away from the monetary recognitions, because compensations and incentives is also another way of recognizing efforts. If the hospitals or the institutions are in compliant with DOLE provisions and respect with the rights of their workers, I think that is one of the major recognitions you may give to nurses for good work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that answer po. Okay, for the next question, please.
Is the community can affect the environment where nurses and other health workers are working into?
Yes, as well. For example, on the community level, let's face it, most of the cases, for example, I will just relate it in the public health emergency. If the implementation of our programs are not strong in the community, then we must take into consideration or assessment if the programs are cascaded to the grassroots, to the families, and if the families and the community people are embracing these programs to prevent the existence of increasing the COVID-19 cases. Because if, for example, if I am working in the hospital and continuously the cases of COVID-19 is increasing, the nurses working in the hospital is not aiming for increasing admissions. When it comes to the concern of nurses working in the hospital, they're also concerned with the welfare, health and welfare of the community to be safe also. In that effect, the implementation of community programs through the public health nurses and the barangay health workers is really significant, so that their leadership as well is one of the factor to consider if they are efficient and effective. As what I've told you, you can be a manager if you're inefficient. You could be a leader if you will be effective. So both efficient and effectiveness must be combined. You cannot just only a manager. You must be also a leader. Because the capacity, for example, if you're a manager, you can plan, you can organize, you can direct, you can control, but you cannot influence the people, then these basic concepts are very important for you to have and to have a successful measure of the implementation of the program. So with this question, I think the community can really affect the environment where nurses and health workers are working into. If the community people are not working, if the community health workers are not working, nurses in the hospital will be also affected. Just the same as the Department of Health as our central office for the health and welfare of our nurses as well. If they will not implement a program cascaded to the both private and government institutions, then this may cause the possibility of the surge probably of the COVID-19, because one of these factors is they lack manpower. So why they lack manpower? Probably the stress level is increased, mental health problems, burnout. So these are the factors to consider. So that's why stay home, community people, we will discipline, and you will help also the nurses. That's why some of the posts of the nurses, stay home, we are working for you to live.
Yes.
Alright.
I agree with Dean Melvin, no, kasi I think talaga that community can affect the environment. Kaya nga siya, di ba,
Yes.
kasali sa curriculum natin na community health nursing, which is
That's right.
why we're identifying the problems within the community. So kailangan talaga may collaboration within the healthcare system and at the same time sa community.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so for the next question, based on what you have said about positive practice environment, what are the examples to improve the work environment in a hospital setting?
Okay. So I have set some of the examples when it comes to positive working environment. So as what I've told you, at this moment, if we will try to relate this in this situation, number one is really the occupational safety and health of the nurses. So that's why most of the hospitals are now working on the vaccination program, because that's one of the priority programs now for the protection of our healthcare workers and who are nurses. So another way to improve the working environment in the hospital is also improving the relationship among the healthy members. Actually, if you will notice, there are also social, although we are not allowed to do social gatherings as of the moment, but if you will notice in other through the years, there are some institutions who are also doing mga social related activities, because they need to improve also their social relationship, because the relationship itself promotes also the strong personal and professional relationship with each other. If that could be enticed, that may give us a strong and more cooperative way of rendering quality care to our patients kasi holistic, and at the same time strong working and harmonious working relationship. Another is if there are situations nowadays that the hospitals are thinking of the welfare of the nurses other than the occupational safety and health. If they extended their support to to the families of nurses, then that could be appreciated as well. So I think those are the examples. Another is if there are there are policies that are being implemented in the hospital, and this will protect the rights and welfare of the nurses, then that could promote also positive working environment.
Yun, okay, sir. I think na naman talaga na kailangan magkaroon ng team building when it comes to pagkakaroon ng healthy environment sa hospital. Kasi nga, di ba, we need to strengthen the relationship with other people in the healthcare settings. Kasi nga, di ba, there is a collaboration. There is a need for collaboration para ma-achieve natin yung pinaka main goal natin, which is to improve the health of our patients and clients. So, kailangan talaga may collaboration. So, okay, for the next question, please.
Is there an instrument or way to measure job empowerment in one institution?
Job empowerment. The more the employees are staying in the institution, the chances of their high level of satisfaction. And that satisfaction is measured on their contentment within the institution, the way the administration are doing. And the impact to the employees as well in return is quality service of the employees. And who will benefit that? The stakeholders. The stakeholders may benefit. So if the administration will support and will give opportunities for their employees to grow, and with this development of their employees, the impact is quality service, then that may sum up with the attainment of the vision, the mission, and the core values of the organization.
Well, okay. Thank you, sir, for answering that question. Hindi lang pala dapat talaga, it's not just about us, but as the whole institution pala talaga.
Yes.
Okay po. Okay, for next question. I think this is the last two questions na lang po, Doc. Okay po, for the next question is... Okay, nurse-to-patient ratio in government hospitals greatly affects the working environment of nurses. What are the possible management?
Actually, when it comes to the possible management, actually at the time, when it comes to the development, it was suggested as a provision for the new nursing bill. But if we will talk about the management as of this time, since some of the hospitals or most of the hospitals are experiencing scarcity of the nurses, I think the proper time scheduling, what is worthy and based from study that will only promote productivity and wellness of nurses to work. So for example, if the nurse are only capable, or not just only a nurse, but a person is only capable of her stamina and energy to work only for 8 hours, then stick to that with 8 hours. Then if it will not prevent the 8 hours, then promote, you could do with the 12 hours working hours, but properly compensated as according to the law. So pertaining to the ratio, this comes to a point that there are some institutions are doing like, I even experienced this. Just like at the night shift, I've been assigned in the operating room. If there are no patients scheduled for operation or any emergency operations in the emergency room, our head nurse or offered assistance to other wards which may need additional manpower. So those are the possible measures, short-term measures. Although it may not be the practice kasi, for example, and if I am in the operating room nurse, I may not just leave my area because it's my accountability. If anything happens with my area. But however, an extended service, even not in the policy, not in the rules and regulation, the word term malasakit lang to colleagues to help them when it comes to promote stress-free work environment. I'm offering myself my willingness to promote and to have my assistance with you so that it may not lead to a stressful environment and promote stress-free environment.
Ayan. Thank you so much po, sir, for your generosity also to help. And ito po for the last question po, Dean, ito na po
Sure.
ang last question. How does an attitude of a manager or a leader affect or impact the workplace and performance of nurses?
It has a great impact. Remember, student nurses, we are oriented with therapeutic communication skills. We are oriented with therapeutic environment. So with this, actually it's part of the BSN program outcomes on how to develop also values and attitude. That's why it's not just only skills, knowledge. The big A is also very important, the attitude. That's actually that could be one of the reasons why some of the nurses may leave institutions because they may not be happy with their superior's attitude. Because personally, let's face it, you could be affected even outside your work. Because try to imagine, she is one of the stressors that caused you stress in your work instead of the what we call focus on your work. But nurses are gifted with coping mechanisms. In spite of considering your managers as stressors, you will be more productive. So that's what you call eustress. EU stress, wherein you convert the stressful events into more productive eustress. It could be also in the mindset because we may not be only considering na, I commit error because my stressor is my head nurse. Accountability is you must not blame others. You must rather admit mistakes rather than blaming others. It's your own responsibility. So because the attitude of my head nurse is like this and like that, that's why I'm not performing well. You must have first your self-reflection. Okay? However, it may cause an impact to you and you may take it seriously if it already affect you in your performance. Example, you commit error because of her. So how to bridge the gap? Communication with each other to bridge the gap. So we must always think of the problems kasi there are some instances that the nurse manager may not be aware or unconscious of her attitude. So the open communication between subordinates and superiors are very important so that to promote also an open communication that for improvement. That's definitely for improvement. Don't be because sometimes even you students are sometimes having hesitancies and reluctancies to some of the faculty and professors to address if you may have some observations, but your faculty may appreciate it. Definitely, if you have observed that, sir, kasi pinagalitan mo ko kanina, na-stress ako, hindi ko nasabit tuloy yung online task ko. So if you open up this to your professor and he knew and she knew your situation, it may bridge the gap to open communication for a faculty-student relationship, and it may improve. This will give you opportunities. So always think stress to eustress. Thank you.
Yun. Alam mo, naniniwala talaga ako sa kasabihan na everyone is born a leader. You just need to learn how to find it within yourself, di ba?
Right.
Kasi, di ba, you are talented, you are a leader. Kasi dapat mag-start niyan ngayon na sa sarili mo. Kasi di ba, if not now, then when? If not us, then who? Di ba? Okay, I think. Okay, Eliza, I think you have something.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Miranda, for answering po all of the participants' queries.
My
And
pleasure.
right now po, we are going to present po to the awarding of the certificate. So from all of us here, the pamantasan ng lungsod ng Marikina College of Health Sciences, Batch Zorgets Pero, we would like to award this certificate of appreciation to Mr. Melvin Miranda for imparting his valuable insights and inspirations to the future professional nurses during the webinar entitled Strategies for Successful Care, Nursing Documentation, and Healthy Working Environment, given this 19th day of March, year 2021, signed by the Dean of the College of Health Sciences, Dean Jacqueline M. Kalaykay, MAN, MSN, RN, our subject professor for nursing leadership and management, Professor Eraldo V. Nepomuceno, MAN, RN, and Ms. Christine Curay, overall chairman of the event.
Okay, thank you so much and congratulations again, Sir Melvin Miranda. And if I may ask, do you have any final advice to our dear audiences?
Okay. To our TLMR RNs, claim it to be, you will be registered nurses. And in the future, you will be part of the health workforce. Already consider the mindset that to be part of the healthcare workforce, you really need to prepare for the battle. The competencies, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude. This will give you confidence, and this will give you the competence that caring is the core of nursing. So, PLMR nurses, contribute for the health workforce. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for that very inspirational message po. Yes, I think that we need to claim talaga na magiging RN tayo para makatulong na rin tayo at this time na may pandemic nga, di ba?
Yes.
Alam mo, yes. Kasi di ba?
Again, thank you so much. Sige, go Ace.
I mean, kasi di ba, as of this moment, parang gusto mo na rin tumulong, di ba, sa, lalo na sa hospital setting. Kasi alam
the
mo,
need, di ba?
Yeah, oo. Okay, so Eliza?
Okay, again, thank you so much, Mr. Melvin Miranda, for that wonderful discussion and advice that you have shared to us po. So Ace, do you have any reminder regarding the ACE certificate?
Yes, I do have a reminder for the participants. You will each receive your certificate after accomplishing the feedback forms. The link for the said form can be found in the email sent to you upon registration, or you can simply scan the QR code flashed on the screen. The form will only be open until 10 p.m. on March 21. Failure to answer the feedback forms within the given period of time means no certificate. So guys, please answer na po para makareceive po kayo ng certificate nyo. Okay, thank you, Eliza, again. And to end our webinar, may we call on our Nursing Leadership and Management Advisor, Professor Eraldo Nepomuceno, for his closing remarks.
Provide this closing remarks. I would like to thank everyone who are present in this webinar, especially our guest speaker, Ms. Danilyn Isidore and Dean Melvin Miranda. Thank you very much, ma'am and sir, for sharing your knowledge and expertise to our audience, to the future nurses. Okay, I hope they remember what you have shared and apply what they have learned. Also, thank you to the attendees, okay, for spending your time with us this afternoon, and I hope you have learned something. And lastly, to my dear students, the organizer, your positive manner have revealed to what you have made in the careful preparation and great efforts to come up with this event. I hope what you have learned through this webinar will help you in your future endeavor. Again, thank you very much, everyone, and have a good day.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that inspirational message po. On behalf of our batch, the batch Zorgets Pero, we would like to express our greatest gratitude to you for supporting us and guiding us throughout the execution of this webinar. Even though po talaga nagkakaroon tayo ng problems when it comes to the execution, but we highly appreciated, sir, na hindi mo kami iniwan until the end of this webinar.
Yes.
And at the same time, I would also like to thank all the participants for staying us until the end of this event. We hope that you gain enough knowledge that you can utilize to do better in your chosen profession for the years to come. Again, thank you everyone and have a blessed day.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. But before ending our webinar, we ask you, everyone, to please join us in singing the PL Mar hymn.
Pamantasan ng lungsod ng Marikina, aming ina, minamahal at sinisinta, karangalan sa dulong at kaalaman, lugod na ingatan, ang dalis ay mong pangalan, sa tuwing ay gabay ka, kasama sa aming buhay. Disiplina at kahusayan, mabuting panlasa, kang inubog na. Pamantasan ng lungsod ng Marikina, ilaw kang tunay sa karimlan kaagapay, luwalhati at pag-asa ng bayan, sulong sa kaunlaran, yan ang diwa ng PL-MAR. Sulong sa kaunlaran, yan ang diwa ng
So I think that is it, everyone. That is all the time we have for our webinar today. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Ace, for being an amazing partner and moderator for today.
Thank you.
And also big thank you po to those people behind this who made this webinar possible. And just a reminder po to all of our attendees, our evaluation form is now open for answering. So please accomplish this first to get a copy of your e-certificate. And once again, this is Eliza Santiago, your host for today.
Yay! Thank you, Eliza. You have been such a wonderful partner for today's event. Okay, on behalf of our batch, the 4th year nursing students of Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Marikina, batch Zorkets Pero 2021, thank you for joining us today. My name is Ace Tabiolo, your moderator. Have a great day, Kapungka!
Bye, guys!
Bye, guys! Thank you for attending.
Good afternoon po. Nandito pa ba si Sir Melvin?
Parang nalagay niyo din yata siya sa waiting room kasi di ko na siya nakita. Check niyo nga.
Wala, walang ilalagay sa waiting room. Grabe naman yun, nilagay yung speaker sa waiting room.
Nag-leave na ata.
Nag-leave na ata, ang tagal eh. Walang nagsasalita eh. Yan yun.
Picture
Okay.
tayo.
Picture na lang us. Bulaga.